All right, and we are live for the first stream of 2026. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. I know it's fairly early, but Happy New Year to everybody. To everybody and anybody who deserves it. Move this over. Howdy, everybody. So let me grab my notes. I'm in a different, there we go. It's not New Year, it is a new year. It is the first day of January in 2026. Howdy, howdy. Hope everybody had a exciting New Year's Eve last night. Why are the guest requests popping up over there? Oh, I hate that. Did they update the TikTok app? Oh, this is awful. All right, let's bring up our first guest. DZ, how's it going?
Pretty good. In Russia right now, I'm pretty damn good, though.
Glad to hear it, DZ. So, DZ, do you believe in a god?
Yes, I believe in God.
And which god would that be, perchance?
So I believe in a God, like the omnipotent God, like the bodiless God, and then I believe in Jesus Christ, which is the human form.
Okay, so look, I'm an atheist. What's the best argument that you could offer me that might convince me that that's real?
So the way I look at it is, cars exist. We all know cars exist, but
by the way, DZ, is it possible
Yeah.
that you could move to a slightly quieter area? It seems like there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Thanks.
It's freezing outside, but it's worth it. Hang on. Okay. Ooh, so
You there? Hello?
can you hear me better?
I can hear you better. Great.
Cool. So the analogy I like to think of is, so cars exist, we all know that, but a dog will never be able to comprehend how an engine was built in a car. So with minus any evolution or any intervention where we can manipulate the dog to make it more intelligent, the way things are now, a dog will never be able to build a car or understand it. So similarly, I see humans as the dog and God creator as the car. Like, there's just no way we can wrap our heads around it. And I know modern physics and science kind of could probably refute the existence of God, but that's kind of my best shot at God. I'm curious to see what you think about it.
I mean, like, suppose that's true. That's not really a reason to believe it's true. I'm asking, like, what's the reason to believe that it's real?
I just think, I don't have anything to base it on, but it's just, the universe is so big and complex that, I guess things could happen by chance, but yeah, I don't know. I believe that there's some sort of creator that is just, 10-dimensional, 20-dimensional, something so complicated we can't understand. Considering how vast and big the universe is. So I believe there is design, and moreover, I believe that God, the bodiless God, sent Jesus over because he understands human nature. He understands humans. Typically, who do they admire? Rock stars, LeBron James, athletes. So humans admire other humans. They follow other humans. So, I think that if a human were to tell someone else, hey, believe in this magical, mystical being in the sky, they're gonna, throughout time, that person's gonna be unalived or cast as a psychopath or whatnot. So I feel like God understands that, and therefore, he sent different gods such as Jesus and Muhammad, and I actually have a theory on why Jesus and Muhammad and different gods exist. And my theory is that, those gods are appropriate for that region and that time. So, you believe whatever you believe in based off where you're born, and that's what you should believe in. And that's kind of, that's kind of what I feel. And, just kind of sharing my thoughts with you.
So I guess my issue is that, like, you said that the universe is so big and complicated. Sorry. My phone is freaking out. You said the universe is so big and complicated, but how does that mean that there's something that made it?
No, that's true. I mean, there's, what is it, the fallacy of gods? I mean, I've heard something about, that refutes my point, which is just because it's complicated and big doesn't mean that there is a God. But again, I mean, I think, I'd circle back to that analogy of how, most humans don't even understand calculus and physics and how to build a car engine.
Look, I understand. It may very well be the case that the universe is sufficiently complex that humans may never understand it fully. Maybe that's true. But what does that have to do with that means a God exists?
I mean, it's just me playing it safe. I would rather not refute God. So by refuting God would mean, eternal hell or eternal burning, or, so I would just rather play it safe. And I'm not going to lie to you and say I fully believe that there is a God. I'm not going to sit here, but
But is that really playing it safe? I mean, like, what if you're wrong and Islam is true? Then you're going to hell.
I think for specifically for the different denominations, I feel that Islam is true for the people of that region and that time, and
right,
Christianity.
But believing in God is not necessarily playing it safe, right? Because if you believe in the wrong one, you go to hell regardless, depending on which one's real.
Where my belief, this is just me, this isn't anything biblical or taught to me. What I specifically believe is that, if you're born in an Islamic region, then you should believe in an Islamic God, because God, the omnipotent mystical being.
But then it sounds like, look, what if the God that's real is the God that only sends atheists to heaven?
I mean, that could be true.
But then you're not playing it safe.
Well, I mean, but then atheists would kind of refute him. They would refute.
Yeah, and then they would go to heaven as a result.
It could be true. I mean, that could be very well be it. Yeah, that could be a possibility. I like to check myself and think, is my ego coming into play here? Am I thinking I'm the most grandiose, biggest creature in this planet or in this universe? And as smart as we are, I mean, we have to leave room for different things and different possibilities. And I'm not like knocking on an atheist or anything or any other person's beliefs, but I kind of like to leave the door open for things. And again, just to branch off a little bit, and I'll digress a little bit. I feel like maybe people have a bad taste with religion because it was force-fed down their throat, or it was, there's a lot of rules, or you have to do this, or you're going to hell. I feel like maybe that's why people kind of have. That's one reason why people kind of have an opposition towards God.
But to be clear, that's the reason that you said that you are betting on God, because you're like, well, I'm playing it safe. I'm afraid of going to hell if I am wrong.
Well, yeah, about 20%. 20% of me is kind of leans into that belief. I'm not going to bolt BS here, but I do more than not believe that there is a God. And there's so many of them that it's like, okay, you picked the wrong one, you're going to hell anyway. I think when we zoom out a little bit, I feel like, okay, well, why would the God, omnipotent, mystical God, be so cruel to send everyone else to hell and only one denomination to heaven? I believe, but that's where I believe, okay, well, then so if you're Islamic, then that's correct for you. If you're Christian, that's correct. If you're I can't think of any other religions, but if you're that religion, then it's appropriate for that person in that region in that time, because there's just so many of them, and so that's kind of what I believe overall. It's just it's so complicated. I mean, I'll go back for the third time to that dog analogy, and how, like, we can sit here and agree that the dog will never be able to put an engine together or even understand how it's built, but it exists.
But
So similar.
you do understand that that's like, to somebody who doesn't already believe in God, that just doesn't move the needle at all. Because what you're saying is that the universe is complicated and we may never understand it. And then you're saying, well, therefore God. But like, those two ideas aren't connected, right? And so if you don't already believe in God, it's just like, you're just telling me some random fact that the universe is complicated.
Country. Yeah, no, I mean, hopefully, we could, by we, I mean the human race. Thank you. We could bridge that gap and find answers. I think we're already discovering that there's extraterrestrial physical beings and interdimensional beings. That's like speculated amongst the like some of the alien community. And so there's like retired Air Force pilots coming out saying they've seen essentially alien crafts, and when you dig into that, it's it's speculated that there's interdimensional beings and physical beings. So there's just so much out there. Apparently some of these interdimensional beings feed off of our energy, off our souls. It's supposedly our bodies are vessels for our souls, and they want to harvest that. And so there's just so much out there that, what do they say? Truth is stranger than fiction. And so,
Yep.
There's just
people say that.
But so I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm hopeful that as we start discovering maybe alien life and other things, then that'll lead the way to answers about humanity and what our purpose is, where we come from, and I know you're definitely a facts-based guy, but
Yep.
all I would say is just leave the door open for possibilities and don't let your ego get in the way of
I agree.
shutting the door.
That's a
on
good
things.
idea. That's a good idea.
But
DZ, I'm gonna let you go, but thank you for being here.
I appreciate your content, brother. Stay safe, man.
Take
Much
care.
love. Yep.
He wasn't aggressive. That's good. We like a chill king, right? Sir, this is the DMV. All right, let's talk to Eugen Alexandro. Oh, I missed some super chats. I'll read them after the next guest. Sorry about that. Eugen, how's it going?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Eugen, do you believe in a God?
Yes,
All right, and which one would that be?
Jesus.
Okay. Now, look, I'm an atheist. What reasons could you give me that might convince me to believe?
The problem is that we don't need to make anyone to believe in something because God give us the free will.
Look,
so if you have the problem,
so the question is, so you came up to this live stream.
No, let me finish. That if you are atheist, you are free to be atheist. It's not a problem.
Then why'd you come up?
Yeah, but because if you try to manipulate people, get into your position, because you are actually a Satanist.
I'm a Satanist. Got it. All right. Well, do you wanna bring this Satanist back to the good side? Do you have any arguments that might convince a Satanist to come back to the good side?
We are free to go wherever we want.
Okay. So then why did you come up?
I come up because people should know that you should be true to the way that you are. Maybe even you don't know.
Ah, okay. But you know.
I know for sure, yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks for being here, Eugen. Also, put a shirt on. Nobody's impressed. Let's read some super chats, and then we'll bring up our next guest. From C-Bar with the $2. Thank you, C-Bar, and I hope your new year is starting out quite well. From Poopman Jones with the $5. Thanks, Poopman. I know it's off topic, but I'm dying to hear your thoughts. Expansion goes on forever in a big freeze. Could it instead halt at a finite size? It could. This is something called a long freeze scenario. It could also halt, turn around, and then recollapse. It's not clear what the inevitable outcome is as it stands. And from Nectu, sending 5 Dr. Blitz gift memberships. These are on the vertical channel, so I guess the verticals are winning today. The verts are beating the whores. But just so you guys know, if you get a gift membership, or if you just pay for the membership yourself, it's like $4 or $5 a month on either YouTube channel or on Patreon, you get access to my debate notes, which just has a whole bunch of arguments and sources and counter arguments and facts and, you know, all sorts of useful, convenient things for all sorts of different topics that I debate. So consider it. Also, if you're on YouTube, you get access to emojis, and that's fun. From Mercia1910 with the £10 first super chat of 2026. Hope everyone will have an awesome year. Likewise, Mercia. And then we have $20 from Mustache Mac with the from Mustache Mac. Happy holidays, Dr. Blitz. Buy yourself a taco. What? Do tacos cost $20 where you are? I appreciate it regardless. And from Jack Fetter with the $5, that first guy seemed to still be studying. Wait till he finds out the finals were last week. I don't know if he was studying. I think he may have been like at a bar or something. He said he was in Russia. And from Kane Malice with the $2, Satan is the only role model I need. Satan, look, depending on how he's depicted, Satan can sometimes be a chill guy, like in Futurama. Yeah, the taco tariffs are hitting hard. True, because they're imported. All right, let's talk to Kurt. Kurt, how's it going?
So good evening from where I'm from, Dr. Blitz, and I just want to say I'm a 15-year-old kid, and I really.
Oh, you can't be here. You have to be 18 and up. I was gonna ask him how old he was, but. Rizzy, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can. Rizzy, how old are you?
I'm 29.
And what year were you born?
96.
Okay. So, Rizzy, do you believe in God?
Yes.
And which one would that be?
Allah.
Okay. Now, look, I'm an atheist. Could you give me a good reason, like a good argument or a piece of evidence or something like that, that might bring me closer to believing in Allah?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you've heard of the law of identity, right?
Sure.
Does the law of identity apply to say infinity when we're talking about like not infinity as an idea, but applied to the physical world?
The law of identity doesn't apply to things in the physical world. It's a statement about objects and a predicate calculus.
Okay, maybe we're disagreeing on yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say you have like an infinite amount of objects in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
Would the law of identity apply to those objects?
So long as those objects are members of, you might call it the universe of discourse in some predicate calculus, then yeah, sure.
Okay, so if I was to remove two of those objects, like let's say you have a infinite amount, and I was to remove two of them, would the law of identity apply?
Yeah. The law of identity applies to each individual object.
Okay, so if I was to remove two, but I had infinity, I would still have infinity, correct?
Yes.
No, that's you have x equals x minus 2 there, which
so infinity isn't a number. It doesn't interact with infinity is not a number. It doesn't interact with addition and subtraction in the way that you would expect numbers to.
No. When you say I have an infinite amount of things, that is a number of things, right?
No, it's a cardinality. Now,
Okay,
cardinalities
so
map
you
onto
can't-
some cardinalities. In fact, the finite cardinalities map onto numbers, but
Hold
the
on,
infinite
hold on.
cardinalities do not.
You're okay. So it sounds like you're mixing math and reality. Then, so we
We're
can't
only
have
talking
that.
about math. We're not talking about physical objects
So-
or whatever.
So you
The
can't
law of identity
have
is a mathematical statement. It's not a statement about physical objects.
No, we can apply it to physical objects.
Not
I can say
really. I mean, you can
I can say you are
describe.
you, right?
You can describe
Yeah.
physical objects using like a formal language, like a predicate calculus, and then you can apply the law of identity to that description. But like, it doesn't apply to the objects themselves. It describes like
hold on,
mathematical
I don't-
objects.
Okay, let's not get bogged down in this. if I say you are you,
Mm-hmm.
I am applying the law of identity
No,
onto you, right?
not really. You're applying the law of identity to an object in a to an object in a universe of discourse.
Okay,
Now
so
that object points to a thing in the real world, right? But it doesn't have to.
Yeah, but
The
okay,
object is not the
so-
real world thing. The object is a pointer to a thing, whether it's a real world thing or otherwise.
Wait, what is the object here?
An object is a mathematical concept, right? There are sets. There's a universe of discourse, and the universe of discourse is going to have objects and predicates.
Okay, so
Predicates are properties of objects. The universe of discourse contains all the objects.
When I say you,
Mm-hmm.
are you an object?
I'm a person. So like,
Yeah.
if we're talking about like a universe of discourse in which the law of identity applies, then absolutely.
Hold on.
Then you is referring to an object and not like the physical thing that is me.
Hold on. You're bringing in terminology that's just going to bog down the conversation. It's a lot simpler than you're making it. If I say you, that means my words are referring to you, correct?
Sure, in everyday language, absolutely.
Okay, if I use are, that means I'm making a statement about you, correct?
Yeah, and again, in everyday language, sure. But everyday language doesn't have a law of identity.
Just hold on. And if I say you again, that means those three words, you are you, is me applying the concept of identity onto you, correct?
I don't know what you mean by the concept of identity. If you just mean like you are like,
The
suggesting
law of identity.
The law of identity is a statement relating objects in a predicate calculus. It's not that'd be like saying you could add together like a tree and a rock. Like, no, addition works on numbers. Equality works on objects in some sort of in some sort of universe of discourse. Like you're confusing math with like reality.
No. You're the one who brought up math. I didn't bring
the law of identity
math.
is a mathematical statement. It's not a statement about like reality.
So are you disagreeing that you are you?
No, that's a totally reasonable thing to say. If you break it down logically.
Is that a mathematical statement?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So in this case, just so we don't talk past each other, when I say you are you, we can use whatever terminology you want. So are you an object in this case?
Yeah, so insofar as the sentence, you are you, is a proposition, and that proposition has a truth value, then one of the objects in that proposition is you, which refers to like the object, like the physical thing, me.
Okay, yeah. So in the same way, if I say I have an infinite number of balls, that refers to a quantity, right?
No, it's just a bad use of language. I mean, like, it's
Okay,
not
why?
a number, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so I have a hard time imagining an amount of balls that aren't a number, right? You either have zero or you have some positive amount, right?
You can have, if by positive you just mean more than zero, then
Yeah, which
sure.
more than zero would be a number, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Why not?
More than zero
Okay,
just
so-
means that you could say that a set has more than zero elements.
No,
if
you're talking
the set
about
is
math.
not the empty set.
You're talking about math.
When we're talking about how
balls.
many elements, when we're talking about how many things are in a category, that's math.
Yeah, but we're talking.
When we're talking about infinity, when we're talking about numbers, that's
No.
math.
No. When we're talking about balls, we're talking about reality. We're not talking about math yet.
The way that we talk about them is using mathematics.
No. So you're presupposing that this idea applies to balls, but I'm saying it doesn't, because obviously,
How are you going to quantify this without mathematics?
if I say to you, let's say you have some number of balls,
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, not necessarily. That sounds like you have 0 balls. There's what other option do you have?
Look, it's just a matter of whether we're being precise with our language. If you're saying that,
I'm being precise.
Like when we talk about a number, we're typically referring to a particular element of a particular class, or I guess usually the language that we would use is a field. A number typically refers to an element of a field. Infinity is just not such a thing. Now, if you're going to use it more colloquially and just say, I have a number of...
We have to stop where we disagree.
I have a number of spheres.
We're just going to talk past each other.
Hold on, I will in a minute. Now, if I say, I have a number of spheres, colloquially, that just means that I have at least one sphere, right? So this is just a difference in the way that language is used colloquially and the way that language is used precisely. And so if we're going to try to make arguments, which I imagine that's what you're trying to do, we should use language precisely.
Yeah, so you said a number is just a field, right?
It's an element of a field.
Yeah, sorry, an element of a field.
Mm-hmm.
So can you show me where a field is in reality? Can you point to me?
I don't think numbers exist in reality, so no.
Numbers don't exist in reality?
No, I think numbers are conceptual. I don't think that they have like separate ontological existence.
Okay, but they point to something in reality, correct?
What do they point to?
Any like object, for example, like you have one glass or something.
Well, no, the word glass points to something in reality. The word one doesn't point to anything in reality.
It points to the idea of one glass.
Well, no, the word one doesn't do that. The phrase one glass does. And the thing that's allowing it to connect with reality is the word glass, not the word one.
One is a property of that glass.
I have no idea what that means.
So that glass is not
Let me ask you this. What does the number 10 to the 7 trillionth power point to in reality?
Just one greater, one less than, a greater or lesser number.
But
by one.
So you're saying that the number points to something in reality, and you're just saying, oh, well, it points to something in reality because it points to other numbers, and you're just assuming that numbers point to something in reality? You're saying numbers point to other numbers, and then you're assuming that the numbers point to something in reality.
I'm saying we know about numbers through our observations of reality.
That's a large philosophical claim. I disagree with it. I think that numbers were invented to describe our observations of reality.
Right. Okay, I'm just trying to see where exactly we disagree here, because we disagreed earlier, but I mean, I forgot what the exact point was. So I mean,
well, you brought up something about infinity and the law of identity, and you were confused because you were trying to use the law of identity as it applies to objects in reality, as opposed to as it applies to objects in a universe of discourse.
Sure. And you said it would be possible to have, like, say, an infinite amount of balls or something, right?
I mean, like, in principle, sure. Both physically in reality and, like, conceptually in a universe of discourse, both things are possible.
Yeah, so if I was to take 2 balls away from that, I would have the same number.
You would still have infinity, yeah.
Yeah. So that makes no sense. Infinity isn't...
infinity minus 5 is still equal to infinity, yeah.
Yeah. I understand that works out in a conceptual sense.
Mathematically, yeah.
But yeah.
That's what infinity is, a mathematical concept.
In reality, that does not apply. If you apply an operation of subtraction, which is defined as taking away from something,
Mm-hmm.
So you take away from something, but nothing is actually taken away. Then that's a contradiction.
No, something is taken away. Look, I mean, something is taken away. It's just you still have an infinite amount. It's just you didn't take away an infinite number, so you still have an infinite amount of things.
That's a contradiction. You have
What's
x
the contradiction?
equals x. You have x equals x minus 2.
X or infinity is not a number.
Okay, so saying you have an infinite amount of
the reason, and maybe I can just elaborate. You're saying x minus 2 as if infinity is a number. The reason why I said that that numbers are elements of fields is because fields are by definition those things. Or elements of fields are by definition those things on which addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are defined. Infinity is not an element of a field. Mm-hmm. And that means that it's not an element of a field, which means that its addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are not defined on infinity.
Yeah, so those
relations don't make sense when you try to apply them to infinity.
Sure. So balls, for example, are things that those operations do apply to, right? So if I had like 5 balls, if I had hold on.
What does it mean to add 2 balls together?
If I hold on. I'm talking about amounts of balls, right?
So you're talking about amounts, not the balls themselves.
Yeah, I asked you.
You can add and subtract amounts as long as those amounts are numbers.
I asked you a specific question. If you had an infinite amount of balls, that's what I asked you.
Yeah,
so that's what I was talking about since the start.
So colloquially, an amount. Like when the amount is finite, it refers to a number. When the amount is infinite, it doesn't refer to a number.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and I'm saying it doesn't refer to anything at all, right?
And infinity, it does. It refers to a cardinality. All numbers are cardinalities. Not all cardinalities are numbers. Well, okay, not all numbers are cardinalities either. The natural numbers are cardinalities.
Hold on. So if I have an amount of 5 balls, I can take away 2, right? Like I can throw them in the trash.
Because 5 is a number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all amounts are numbers.
Yeah. No problem. But if I had an infinite amount of balls,
yep, that's an amount that's not a number.
I wouldn't be able to take away 2 balls and throw them in the trash according to you, because that doesn't apply.
Set removal still absolutely is totally well defined on any set, really. Like set subtraction, but the set is not the amount. The set and the amount are not the same thing. You have a set of balls. Now, there is an amount of balls in that set, but the set of balls is not the same thing as the amount of balls in the set. These are conceptually different things. And you can remove things from a set without having well-defined notions of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division that correspond to the amount of elements in that set.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. But in terms of having an infinite amount of balls, would you be able to take away 2 balls from that amount?
Sure, you can remove 2 balls as long as you have some way to select them.
Okay, but you would have the same amount of balls after you remove 2.
Yeah, the cardinality would be the same. Yeah.
Okay, that makes no sense.
Sorry that the arithmetic of infinity is complicated and confusing for you, but there's no actual contradiction there.
Yeah, no, there is a contradiction. You're saying you're removing an amount, but the amount stays the same.
Yep. What's the contradiction?
Yeah, you're removing an amount.
Who says anything about removing necessarily changing the amount?
That's what removing does. It changes the amount.
For finite amounts, sure.
Yeah, but that's when we look at balls and we see that removing 2 balls from 5 balls gives you 3 balls.
Yep.
And now you're saying, okay.
Yes. So when you
remove balls and I remove 2, I have the same amount.
When you remove elements from a finite set, then yes, the cardinality of the set changes. when you remove elements from a non-finite set, the cardinality can change, but it could also not change.
No, but that's the thing. That's math, man. That's not.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about math.
That's not what happens in reality. No, when we're talking about balls, we're
talking about amounts,
math.
right? We're talking about amounts of things. That's math.
When we're talking about balls, we're connecting math to reality.
Math is a descriptor of, or mathematics is used as a descriptor of reality. And so if you want to talk about amounts of anything, or if you want to talk about set subtraction, that's what you're talking about when you say removing balls from you know, some grouping. Those are mathematical statements.
Yeah, but
what's
that
okay? Can you
tied to reality?
I mean, they can be. They don't have to be. Can you illustrate exactly what the contradiction is here?
Yeah,
what's the P and what's the not P?
I've explained it to you. You say infinity is not an amount. So when I say an infinite amount of balls,
infinity is not a number. If you want to use the word amount to describe infinity, that's okay.
Okay, so let's say is one ball would be, you know, a number, right? A number of balls.
Yep.
2 balls would be a number of balls.
Yep.
1,000 balls would be a number of balls.
Yep.
1,000 to the 10th power of balls would be a number of balls.
Yep.
But infinity, which is just this going on and on and on.
No, infinity is not a process.
Okay, could you explain to me what?
So one definition of like the, you know, the standard the standard infinity that's used to count like the number of balls in a set, for example, this would be the countable infinity, it is the cardinality of a set that is larger than any finite cardinality.
Yeah, so why do you believe this applies in reality? Why would this?
Why do I believe what applies? Well, there's no contradiction. So unless you can explain where the logical contradiction is in talking about like some aspect of reality being describable by like an infinite set.
Sure. When you say like the cardinality, by that you just mean size, right?
I mean like the number or amount of elements in the set.
Right. So,
that's what cardinality is.
Right. So, like when I have like 5 balls or whatever, right? It seems like I understand what cardinality means there, right? But when you say the cardinality of infinity, you know, as it relates to infinite
set.
Yeah, as it relates to balls, that's where I kind of get lost. So it seems like it doesn't have the same property as this set of 5 balls.
Well, look, so
because
the sets have the
set
same
of 5 balls.
The
is
sets have the
something
same operations. Like the operations on the sets are still well defined. What you're talking about is the operations on the cardinalities, and the operations on the cardinalities. You're right. Like the cardinalities just live it like there are 2 different kinds of cardinalities. There are infinite cardinalities and finite cardinalities, and they behave differently.
Right.
Like, look, you could say the exact same thing about positive and negative numbers. You have positive numbers, and you can take their square roots, and you have negative numbers, and, you know, barring complex numbers, of course, you can't take their square roots. Like, they behave differently.
Sure. But, okay, so it seems strange to me that, you know, for this like finite set of balls, like 5 balls, I can take 2 away and I would have a different number, right? I would have a different cardinality. But for this infinite, you know, set of balls, I would have the same number. So it seems like
you'd have the same cardinality. Again, not a number.
Yeah. I mean, you said cardinality refers to
it refers to the number, or it's the size, the number or amount of elements in a set.
Yeah, I don't see how that's different from what I said.
Well, a number is a specific kind of cardinality, or rather there's an overlap between specific kinds of cardinalities and numbers. Not all numbers are cardinalities, not all cardinalities are numbers, but some cardinalities are numbers. Some cardinalities are not numbers.
Okay, so when I was mentioning infinity and I said number, you're saying number doesn't apply to infinity, right?
No, that infinity is just not a number.
Yeah, it's not a number. So
Right.
If I don't have a number of balls, it's not a number.
You have an
but I
amount
know,
of balls.
Yeah, and it's not a number, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not one. I don't have one ball, I don't have two balls, I don't have three balls, I don't have four balls.
Yep.
If I don't have at least one ball, then that means that there are no balls there at all.
I don't know what you mean. Well, so you have.
You would have to have at least one ball.
So you do have at least one ball, absolutely. If at least just means that like you can find a subset within your set that has a cardinality that is equal to whatever number you're talking about. So like there is a subset of your infinite set of balls that has a cardinality of 1. So you have at least one ball. There is a cardinality, or there is a subset in your infinite subset of balls that has a cardinality of 1 trillion. So you have at least 1 trillion balls, right?
You're saying these subsets are subsets of infinity, right?
Of the infinite set of balls, yeah.
Right. And okay, so those subsets, the operation of subtraction, applies to those subsets, right?
If it applies to the cardinalities of the subsets, if the subsets have finite cardinality, yeah.
Yeah, so if there's a cardinality of 1 and we subtract that,
then you can do set subtraction to remove that subset from the whole set, yeah.
That would be the same as just removing a ball in reality, right?
Yes. Set subtraction is like the equivalent of that physical operation, yeah.
And if I do that, you're saying the same cardinality exists for that infinite. Yeah, that makes no sense.
What's the contradiction? I mean, like, I agree it's counterintuitive, but what's the contradiction?
Because I can lay out 3 balls on the ground and remove 1.
Yeah.
And I can clearly see that there is a difference of 1 ball.
Yeah, and that's true for a finite set. It's not true for an infinite set. What's the contradiction? What's the P and not P?
Yeah, the P and not P would be you're just saying arbitrarily that subtraction doesn't apply to this set.
Well, to be clear,
There's
set
no
subtraction
reason...
does. Cardinality subtraction doesn't. Cardinality subtraction only applies to numbers.
No
Infinity
problem.
is not a number.
That sure, cardinality subtraction.
Yeah, so what's the P and not P?
You're just saying it doesn't apply, but
that's not a contradiction. What's the contradiction?
No, the contradiction is, in reality, we see that cardinality subtraction does.
For finite things, yeah, that is what we see. For finite things, it does work. So what's the contradiction?
It's just like special pleading to say that, it just doesn't work on...
Special pleading is not a contradiction. Also, it's not special pleading. This is like standard mathematics.
No. You're saying it doesn't apply to infinite things just because it doesn't apply. Like, you're defining subtraction to not apply.
To be clear, that's not a contradiction. And also...
I didn't say it's a contradiction.
You did say it's a contradiction.
No, I didn't.
You did earlier. When? We could replay it, but I'm not going to. People who are watching on YouTube, you guys can rewind. The point is that special pleading would be me inventing a rule set to get around an argument you're making. I haven't invented anything I've mentioned here. This is standard set theory. There's nothing I've mentioned here that is like, you know, invented to get around some sort of argument you're presenting. Like, there's nothing special pleading here. This is just how infinity is defined and works.
Okay, maybe special pleading is the wrong word. It sounds like whoever you know, shares this idea that...
You mean mathematicians?
Sure. Whoever shares this idea that, you know, you have, it seems like they've just like constructed a concept that doesn't, you know, map onto reality.
So can you show me an example in reality where you have an infinite set and you take away some amount from it and you get a finite set? Sorry, you take away a finite amount and you get a finite set. Can you show me that in reality?
No, I don't have any examples of...
So then how does it not map onto reality? Where's the contradiction with reality?
Yeah, because you're saying that taking away doesn't change the size.
For infinite sets, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the definition of what taking away...
Or finite sets.
What we understand taking away to mean.
That's what happens. For finite sets, yeah, our experience is entirely with finite sets. So to say that it therefore must also apply to infinite sets is an assumption that you're making.
We don't have any experiences with infinite sets in reality.
Well, I don't think that we have any experience with sets, period, because I don't think that sets exist. I think that we create sets conceptually to describe reality. But I mean, like, even then, like, we don't have, like, we don't create infinite sets, except perhaps when we're talking about, like, the number of places between, the number of points or the number of locations between two places. Think about, like, Zeno's paradox, for example. That relies on an infinite number of sets. Now, it's resolved by calculus, which there's not really any concern there.
It's resolved by saying that infinity is just an idea and it doesn't make sense.
I mean, it's resolved by calculus. Like, once you allow calculus to exist and calculus to be like a good description of the way motion happens, then there's no issue.
No, there's no issue because, like, you can like make a small form of, you know, something analogous to Zeno's paradox with your fingers, right? Like, if you hold your fingers like up, you know, your thumb and your index finger, like, and you make a little line, you know, there's supposed to be an infinite amount of points between your fingers, right? But obviously you can close your fingers and you can feel them touching each other, which indicates that there's actually not an infinite amount in reality.
Or it indicates that it's possible to cover an infinite number of spatial points in a finite amount of time, which is what's allowed by calculus. The explanation of how that works originates from calculus.
No, because if you're saying there is an infinite amount, okay, let's just use the points between my index finger and my thumb. If you're saying, okay, let's say that's a set and it has an infinite cardinality, right?
Yeah.
Is that the language that you use?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if I slowly inch my fingers towards each other, you would, you know, this is obviously the cardinality is decreasing, but
the measure is the way that we would characterize that is with a measure, not with cardinality. The cardinality is staying the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. I said if I inch my fingers closer, you believe that the cardinality is staying the same.
Yeah.
And once
the measure changes, but yeah, the cardinality stays the same.
Okay, so now you're introducing measure. Measure sounds like what do you mean by measure?
It's a separate mathematical concept that's used in, you know, probability theory and topology. But it roughly accounts for like how much a set would weigh. That's like one way that you can kind of talk about it.
Okay, sure, no problem. Just we'll ignore that for now. And once my fingers get to get to touching each other, what cardinality do they have? Do they have an infinite cardinality?
Once they touch each other, if there's no space,
Yes.
then the number of points between your fingers is the empty set, and so the cardinality is 0.
Yeah, so but initially you would believe that the cardinality is infinite, right?
Yep.
And as I was, changing the measure, the cardinality turned into 0.
Yep.
Okay, so the taking away does change the cardinality then.
It can. Nobody ever said it couldn't. It just doesn't always.
Okay, so in the ball example that we were talking about, why would that not change the cardinality?
It depends on which elements you remove, right? If you remove just like the first element of your infinite set or something like this, then the cardinality won't change. On the other hand, if you remove every single element after the third ball, then the cardinality will change, and you'll end up with a cardinality of 3. Depends on what you remove.
Yeah. Okay, so you agree. Okay, I just want to make this analogy completely clear using the finger example and the ball example, because something's not clear to me regarding your logic. So you agree with the finger example, the cardinality is
it's infinite until your fingers touch.
The same way this. Yeah, you said it until my fingers touch, but so that's not like that can't be 3. It would have to be exactly. It would have to be exactly like 1, right?
I don't know what's 3, what's 1?
You're saying like if you remove everything, after the number 3, do you remember when you said that? Like,
yes. If you remove every ball after, like if you have the balls lined up in an order and you remove every ball after the third ball, then you'd be left with a finite number. Yeah. So what you're now confusing is you're confusing a continuum set, or this is also sometimes known as an uncountable set, and a countable set. The number of balls is a countable set.
Not if it's infinite, though, right?
Countable doesn't mean finite. Countable means that there is a 1-to-1 relation with the integers. Well, there's a bijection with the integers, I should say. Now, by the way, and just because maybe this can help clarify, what happens if, so you have how many numbers do you think that there are?
How many numbers do I think there are?
Yeah. Like whole numbers.
However many someone can conceptualize.
So is there a number?
Not necessarily.
So there's not a number of numbers. So you're telling me that if I have a set with the number 1 in it, there's a number of numbers in there. There's 1. If I have a set with the numbers 1 and 2 in it, there's a number of numbers in there. There's 2. If I have a set with all of the numbers up to 35, there's 35 numbers there. But if I ask you how many numbers there are in total, you can't tell me what the number is?
No, it's subjective.
The number of integers is subjective.
Yeah.
Subjective on whom?
Whoever is conceptualizing the numbers.
Okay, so to be clear, you think that the number of numbers, and you think numbers exist in reality, right?
I think we know numbers through things in reality, and like the base number is 1.
So do numbers exist or do they not exist?
Again, if you just mean if we can think of this idea of numbers, then yes, they exist, but in reality,
yeah, and what's the biggest one?
That we can think about?
No, just what's the biggest one, period? Or do numbers only exist in the human mind?
Yeah, well, that kind of gets into linguistics. Like, what do we mean when we say numbers? Like, are we on the same
I don't know, man. You've been assuming that you've been talking about numbers this whole time, whatever you mean.
Yeah, as I understand numbers to be their ideas that we apply to things in the real world. So
Literally
conceptual.
15 minutes ago, I asked what the number 1 refers to in the real world, and you said it refers to something in the real world. Not that it's a not that it's a concept, not that it's a thing that exists in the human mind only, but that it was a thing that exists in the real world because it points to a thing that exists in the real world. In the same way that a ball points to something that exists in the real world, in the same way that like this pencil points to this thing. You said that numbers point to a thing that exists in the real world, and now you're changing your mind.
I wouldn't say changing my mind, but more so clarifying my earlier position.
So, by the way, you understand that you are now in like the vast minority amongst mathematicians who would say that there are like obviously an infinite number, an infinite amount of integers, right?
Conceptually, no, there's definitely no problem with that.
Okay, now what happens if you get rid of half of them?
And half of an infinite amount?
Yeah, what happens if you get rid of half of the, well, let's say you remove all of the even numbers.
Yep.
How many numbers do you have left?
An infinite amount.
Oh, so you can remove an infinite amount from an infinite amount and still be left with an infinite amount?
Yeah,
That
but I'm
seems
saying
weird.
this. Yeah, I'm saying this is all conceptual, right? When we
You
when we
agreed that
apply it to
numbers are
real-
conceptual. So of course it's conceptual. Numbers are conceptual, and mathematics in general is conceptual.
numbers when they're applying to things in the physical world, like the ball example that I gave you, like the like the thumb and index finger, they do not behave in the same way that mathematics would like us to believe.
So you're saying that math is fine, but once you apply math to the real world, math is wrong.
No, I'm saying it's the best approximation that we have of the real world. But just because I can think of an idea like infinity or unicorns, it doesn't mean that it's true in the real world.
Absolutely the case. The question, though, or the point that you're bringing up, is that you're saying that not only does being able to conceptualize it mean that it's not necessarily true, but that it's impossible for this thing that you can conceptualize to exist in the real world.
Yeah, based on
And you haven't
examples like
demonstrated that.
Yeah, no, I gave you the thumb and index example where
So
you're
where's
saying
the
this-
contradiction?
You're saying the cardinality goes from infinity to
Zero. Yeah.
to zero. Yeah. So I mean, there's an obvious change there. So
Yep.
so no matter how many operations from what I understand, based on what you said earlier, no matter how many times you have the operation of subtraction, you will always have
For
an
any
infinite
finite number of finite subtractions. Yeah.
Yeah, but you would agree that there's an infinite amount of points between my thumb and my index finger, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So according to you, subtraction just doesn't apply to infinite cardinalities, right?
Yeah. I mean, you do set
Yeah.
subtraction. Like numerical subtraction just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work on
Yeah.
things that are not numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But with the thumb and index example, we see that subtraction does apply, but there's supposed to be an infinite cardinality there.
Set subtraction applies. Cardinality subtraction doesn't.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand the difference here. 'Cause the cardinality is going from infinity to zero, right? At what point does it go to zero? Regarding the thumb example.
When your fingers touch.
Yeah, and right before that, what's the cardinality?
It's infinite.
It's infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So Yes. So,
The measure is small, but the cardinality is infinite.
okay, so
Look,
yeah,
how
the
many
thing
how
that's
many numbers are between 0 and 0.1?
an infinite amount.
Okay, how many numbers are between 0 and 0.001?
The same. The same.
Okay, and
No,
how many numbers?
we
Right. So it's but
we
how many
agree
numbers
on
are between
this.
0 and 0?
Between 0 and 0,
Yeah.
0.
Well, it's in some sense 1 because 0. Well, it depends on what you mean by between. But the point is that like the cardinality can change very abruptly. If you're subtracting off infinite sets each time, the cardinality can change very abruptly, right?
But the cardinality of an infinite set can't change, though, right?
Sure, it can. I've given you
How?
examples of how it can. You have, let's say you have an infinite set of balls, like an infinite amount of balls in your set. You have an infinite number of balls, if you want to say that. So basically for every number, for 1 there's a ball, for 2 there's a ball, for 3 there's a ball, and so on. Now, if you remove all but the first 3 balls, then the cardinality changes. But if you remove the first half balls, or I shouldn't say half, if you remove the first 10 trillion balls, you still have an infinite amount. So it just depends on what set subtraction you're doing. But look, Rizzy, we've been going at this for like an hour, and the only recommendation I should make is take a set theory class.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll do. I'll try
Like
to.
it'll make your life so much easier, and like it'll just remove the confusions. But thanks for being here, Rizzy. By the way, that YouTube video is absolutely going to be called Muslim Can't Stop Talking About Balls. I'm sorry, Rizzy, that's how you're going to go up on YouTube, but it's just funny. I gotta do it. Like it's what it's gonna be. Like. All right, we have some super chats to read, and we'll bring up our next guest. So from Pirate Fly with the £2, Scottish Hangover, you are my savior today. I don't know what that means. From Daniel Cormier with the $5, I would love your opinion on my belief that energy is forever and just changes form. Energy originated from a deity who set energy in motion and left. Well, if energy originated, then it's not forever. Furthermore, energy is just not something that's like clearly conserved in a universe that is dynamic. From Poopman Jones, thank you for the $2. Don't bog down the talk with terminology. Yeah, that's the. I imagine that you're saying that in an exasperated sense. Like, absolutely, we have to use the right terminology, right? From Reverend Nate with the 5 Canuck bucks, why do so many people respond to "you are wrong, here's why" with "yes, exactly" or "that's my point"? It's just like a way of talking. Like I'm not. Like, it can get a little frustrating, but like I try not to be too upset about it because it's just like it's exactly as often used as a transition word. From Jack Fetter with the $5, that first guy seemed to still be studying. Wait till he finds out the finals were last week. That was referring to the Russian fella, I think. Oh, I already read that. From Gretchen with the $3.11. WTF does this have to do with God? Stay linear. Well, presumably he wants to say that the universe is finite, and so it can't have an infinite number of days, but like, yeah, I imagine that's where he was going. From Duke of Shastka with the €5, if God is not real, who made God do a full orbit in exactly, who made Earth do a full orbit in exactly 1 year? Here's hoping apes do better this cycle. Oh, yeah. What is it? Apes Together Proud or whatever? That was like the NFT thing, right? From Boogie the Cat with the $2, transcendental argument for balls. Indeed, the transcendental argument for balls. From Duke of Shastka again with the €2. Next on Idiocracy's best TV show, Oh My Balls. Just look at the balls. Thank you, Duke. Name with the $5. You built like a Discord mod. Big glasses and greasy hair. I understand why you don't believe in any god when you built like that. My hair's not greasy. It's shiny. It's literally like I literally shampooed and conditioned this morning. It's not greasy. It just has natural sheen because, you know, I take care of it. I do have big glasses. You're right. I don't know what it means to be built like a Discord mod. I didn't know that Discord mods were 7'4", but okay. But thank you for the $5 anyway. I appreciate the hate donation. From Garain with the $5. Is this a super elaborate setup for a punchline about testicles? Yeah, I think it was. Maybe it was. And from Kane Malice with the $10. Sorry, we have a whole bunch of super chats, but we're going to get through these and then we're going to bring up our next guest. From Kane Malice with the $10 saying, all right, Dr. Blitz, you might be a rocket scientist, but have you considered the real hard science here? How many lands should I be running in my commander deck? It depends on what you're doing. I have a deck that runs 54. I have another deck that runs 29. So it just depends on what you're doing. From Kelly Share with the $5, appreciate the caller. Honestly, I did too. We had an interesting conversation at least. From Scottish Kenzie with the €2, tag distinctive syllogism. Google it. You mean disjunctive, right? From Poopman Jones with the $2, don't bog down the talk with infinite balls. Scottish again with the £5, tag disjunctive syllogism. Google it, put it on the screen. I'm familiar with it. Duke of Shaska sends €5 for say balls again. I double dog dare you. Yes, I will. Balls. From Mr. Exclusive with the $10. Thank you so much, Mr. Exclusive. Everything you've ever attempted to conceptualize in your mind about God in terms of whether he exists or whether he does not exist is still not enough. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. From Jack with the $5, that conversation would have been freaking awesome if his part was read by a stoned Keanu Reeves, Bill and Ted, Theodore Ted Logan. It would have been funny. From Civil with the $2, Dr. Blitz, I didn't know you were a urologist. I'm not. And from TF2 Cut with the 5 Canuck bucks, I sure wish someone could show me scientific evidence of the existence of God. Maybe a hair, maybe a DNA sample, anything to prove he exists at all. That'd be good, wouldn't it? I agree. From Scottish again with the £5, atheists, please prove the transcendentals empirically and don't say it just is, bruh. I mean, like, is that a contradiction? From Getaway with the 14 Canuck bucks, thank you for the hate comment. Stop being pedantic. You're intentionally obfuscating your point and doing nothing to actually help him understand or move this conversation forward. You look like a jerk flaunting presumed superiority. Maybe I did look like a jerk. If I looked like a jerk, I apologize. The trouble is when people come in trying to make logical arguments about mathematical concepts like infinity and then just are not familiar with the mathematics, I'm sorry, like you look a little bit silly when you do so. From Scottish again with the £5, reality is a metaphysical claim. I don't grant you metaphysics. Okay. From Mr. Exclusive with the $10. Thank you so much, Mr. Exclusive. Everything you've I already read that one. I'm sorry. It's doing the repeat thing. All right, I think that oh no, we have a few more. From Gretchen with the $3. At this point, the background should say Blitz vs. Balls. From Tax the Church with the $5, how much do we have to pay for you to kick callers? It seems you have a hard time recognizing trolls. He wasn't a troll. I know the type, he wasn't a troll. And from Vicinal Elk with the $2, I have a finite number of balls and it is 3. Congrats! I'm proud of you. From Reverend Nate with the 5 Canuck bucks, Blitz ended 2025 with bootyism and started 2026 with Islama balls. Best of luck with whatever weirdness comes next. Likewise. From you with the €5 or with the £5, if one decides to exist as 2, who can stop him? He is all powerful, right? What? From Poopman Jones again with the $2. Sorry, last one, the big ball theory. Look, we're talking about balls, okay? And from Turdfurter, Treadfurter with the $2. Dude has no clue about mathematics or math proofs. I agree, he didn't. But that doesn't mean that he can't learn. And the last one from Pat in the chat with the $2. New year, same terrible arguments from theists. Agreed. All right, y'all. We thank you guys so much for the support. Let's bring on our next guest. Let's talk to Go Caving. Okay, Go Caving is not here. Let's talk to this person with, is that Thai or Cambodian in the username? I don't actually recognize the characters. Hey,
No,
how's it going?
It's X. Hi there.
X.
How you doing, man?
Do you believe in God?
Yeah.
Okay, and just curious,
What is
what script is used in your name?
Yeah, I'm using the Amharic script. Do you know Amharic?
Amharic. Oh, it's Amharic. Okay. Oops.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's
Okay.
a simple language.
Definitely not Thai or Cambodian, but fair. Okay, X. Why? I don't believe in God. Why should I?
I mean, you asked me like, what's your God or something like that. So what I want to know first is, what you mean by atheist? I think the word atheist got a subjective description. So
Yeah, I mean
want to
that
know
I
your
don't believe in
point of
God.
view.
So what I mean is that I don't believe in a God. I haven't heard
Let's
particularly.
forget that.
I don't
Okay,
believe in a
let's forget
God.
that,
Wait, is there a
Okay, let's
delay?
forget that. I mean, do you hear me?
I do, but I think that there's a delay.
No, that's okay. Okay, let me ask you a question. Like, if atheism got a subjective description, I want to get your point of view. What you mean by
I
when
was
you say I'm
telling you,
atheist?
and then you interrupted me. I was telling you, right? So
Okay,
what
go
I
ahead.
mean is that I don't believe in God. I haven't heard compelling arguments for the existence of God, and I have heard compelling arguments for the non-existence of God. That's what I mean.
I mean, where did you get this ideology from? Like, what you say, God? Where did you get this word?
It's a word that it has a particular meaning in English. Typically, it means some sort of divine entity that's responsible for creating the universe.
Oh, so you're talking about the creator, like who created the universe.
That's usually what the word means in English.
So I mean, you're just disproving someone else's creator.
I don't know what you mean by disproving. I just don't believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, you're disproving someone else's creator.
I don't know what you mean by disproving here. I just don't believe in it.
Of course. I mean, when I asked you about God, you said that it's a terminology that defines the creator of the universe,
Yeah.
right?
Usually it's supposed to be supernatural too.
Who gave you this description?
That's just what the word means in English.
So it's just a word. You
Yeah.
don't believe in that, right?
Yeah.
So okay, let me make it this way. Do cats exist?
Do cats exist? Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do RMZ exist?
Sorry, what'd you say? Do what? Do what exist?
Do RMZ exist?
Oh, I don't know what
It's
word you're
just a
saying.
made-up word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Then
Thank you.
I don't
Thank you.
I don't know what that is, so
Then you
I can't have a view on it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. When I asked you, do cats exist? You said yes. When I asked you, do RMZ exist? What does it mean? You said so. You see, you need to know something first before you say it exists.
Yeah, I need
or
to have
not,
I
right?
need to have a conception of what the word is referring to. So I have a conception of what cats refers to. It refers to like small feline animals. But I don't have a
So,
conception
when
of
it
what
comes
the
to
word
that-
that you referred to says. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you came to God,
Yeah, I gave you a
what's your
definition.
source? It's like,
I don't know what you mean. What's your source? That's just how the word is used by English speakers.
so you're disproving others' ideology.
Look, if somebody asks if I believe in God and they're speaking English, I can reasonably infer what they're talking about. And so I'll tell them no. And in English, that's what it means to be a god.
Of course. So you're disproving their God, right?
I'm not disproving it. I just don't believe in it.
Of course. You don't believe in their God.
Yeah.
So what if others do not exist? Why can't you stand by yourself? Do not depend on others.
Well, I still don't believe in any supernatural creators.
You don't have to.
Okay, that's what I mean when I say I'm an atheist.
Yeah, but you are arguing with like someone else's ideology. That's weird.
Somebody else wants to convince me of their ideology. It's normal to talk and argue then. Somebody wants to convince you of something and you don't
Okay.
believe them. That's normal.
Of course. Let me come right here. When you say you don't believe in a supernatural being, what is your proof? What's your proof for the non-existence of the supernatural being?
I'm not saying I have proof. I'm saying I've heard good arguments against it, and I haven't heard good arguments for it.
Okay, so you don't have the proof for the non-existence of
I
a
never
supernatural
made the
being.
claim that I have proof that there are no supernatural beings.
Okay, thank you. I just misunderstand you. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
That's
thank you
what
for
I-
being here, X. I think that there was a bit of a language barrier there, too. So I don't think that he was being bad faith. I think it's just there's a language issue. All right, we have a few super chats, like just one or two, and then we'll move on to our next guest. From Scottish with the £5, so now you don't have any epistemic grounding for any beliefs, including math and rights. You lost by agreeing to I don't grant you metaphysics. Okay, well, Scottish, you could just join the live stream and we could talk about it. I think that you're asserting things without like knowing my viewpoint. Anyway, from Vicinal Elk with the $2, I already read that one. From Duke of Shaska with the €5. Does a legendary plus 30 stamina set of infinite balls exist? Yes. Let's talk to Photon Mass. Photon Mass, by the way, is where light goes to church. Photon Mass, how's it going?
Good. Going good.
Glad to hear it. Photon Mass, do you believe in God?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And look, so I don't. What's the best argument you could offer me, or evidence, or something that might convince me to join your side?
A lot of people believe in it.
Well, yeah, but like, you know, I'm a
That might not be that.
renegade. I'm a rebel. So just because a lot of people believe in something, it's not a good reason to believe in it, in my view.
Have you ever believed in a god?
Not as far as I can remember.
Have you ever heard any type of good argument for it?
I mean, like, there are arguments that are better than other arguments, but I don't find any of them particularly compelling. No.
What's the most compelling?
I don't find any of them particularly compelling.
Not even like a deistic, just
No. If I found them compelling, then I would be a believer, right?
yeah. I gotta drop. I'm
Okay.
just trying to drop.
You're good. From Kane Malice with the $2, 54 lands, you must be a dirty Simic player. No, so the deck that there's 54 lands in is, the commander is Sasaya Orochi Ascendant. And if you don't know what that card does, because it's from like 20 years ago, it has an activated ability. It's a creature. It has an activated ability that if you have 7 or more land, you know what, let me just show you. I can just pull it up. Because this is what we're doing now, apparently. It has this activated ability, right? Oops. If you have 7 or more lands in your hand, then you can flip it and it becomes a really good enchantment. So you need a lot of lands to make sure that you have 7 lands in your hand early game. That's why. Anyway, not Simic. From UHFV, oh no, I already read that one. From Scottish again with the £5, a skeptic with a viewpoint you're leaning towards contradictory. What? A skeptic with a viewpoint you're leaning towards contradictory paradigm. Well, what's the contradiction? You like Pokemon? No, not really. All right, let's talk to Mad Madick. That's funny. He made me say that. Mad, how's it going? Mad? Mad? All right, he's not here. Let's talk to Counterposition. Counterposition, how's it going?
Oh my, what's up?
Counterposition, can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
So, Counterposition, do you believe in a god?
Yes, I do.
And which one would that be?
I'm a Muslim, so
Okay.
I believe in God. Allah.
Sure. So now look, I'm an atheist. So what would be the best argument or piece of evidence or, fact about our universe or something like that that might, make me want to lean closer to your position?
Have you ever heard of the contingency theory?
Contingency theory? I imagine you mean contingency argument. Yeah, I have.
Yeah. And can you tell me why you don't think it's
So are you talking like which contingency argument are you using? Are you using like a modal one?
Dependency.
Okay, so why don't you lay out the argument that you want to present, because there are several different contingency arguments and I can address it.
Everything is dependent on something else. Therefore, there must be like a starter of all the dependent things. Otherwise, there would be an infinite regress, which is a fallacy. You can't have infinite recurring dependent things, right? Otherwise, you never reach this point. So there must be a start, right? And that's how God
All right, so I wrote down your argument as best as I could. Let's pull it up.
Cool. It's kind of zoomed in.
Yeah, I know. 1 sec. Sorry.
Everything is dependent. Yeah.
Something like this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
God.
So, I mean, like, okay, so suppose I grant P1. It then follows that God is dependent on something else.
God is metaphysical, therefore, well, the whole point of God is that he's independent.
Okay, but then it's not the case that everything is dependent on something else.
Everything physical, then, I guess.
Okay. How are you defining physical, by the way?
Something that's created.
Everything physical, meaning created, is dependent on something else. Okay, and then P2, there must be a starter of all of the dependent things. And your justification for that is that if not, there'd be an infinite regress of dependent things, right?
Yeah, that's a fallacy.
Which is a fallacy. That's the claim. Why should I believe that an infinite regress of dependent things is a fallacy?
Because if it's if there's an infinite amount of time, you'd never reach this point, right? If there's infinite dependent things,
that doesn't follow.
How come?
So you could have like all moments existing equally,
No,
and
if
so
there
then
were
there's no
infinite
there's no
recurring-
notion of reaching to begin with.
No, okay, so there's if time is infinite,
Mm-hmm.
right? You'd never reach this point because there's infinite events that happen.
Look, so maybe that's true under the A theory of time. It doesn't. That's not true under the B theory of time, which is what I subscribe to. So
Okay, can you tell me how you imagine time is infinite?
I imagine time as, I imagine that the timeline exists in, essentially identically in the same way that the number line exists, or the number line conceptually exists anyway. Meaning that all of the moments exist. We just find ourselves in one, and we will find ourselves in another at some, at some other moment, right?
Okay, but
We will find ourselves in another. We are in one moment, and we were in another moment, right? And all moments exist.
If there were infinite moments
Mm-hmm.
before this moment,
Mm-hmm.
that's a fallacy because you'd never reach this moment.
What do you mean reach? I don't view time as a thing that flows. I take the flow of time to be conceptual.
So like
right, but I don't take time to be a thing that flows. I think that all moments exist equally.
How does that work? Like,
just in the same way that all numbers exist equally.
Drinking water and not drinking water at the same moment.
It's not the same moment. They just both moments exist, right?
So you
just not the same moment
in multi dimensions.
What?
Well, yeah.
I mean, like time is a dimension. It's one of four space-time dimensions. That's true. Yeah.
So, can you explain how? Okay. Can you elaborate? Yeah.
Yeah. So, on which part? The whole time, all moments of time existing equally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is a standard kind of implication of general relativity from Einstein. But like the way to picture it is just imagine that like you have a loaf of bread, where each slice of the loaf of bread is a moment of time, and you can think of like moving around on a given slice as moving around in space. It would be incorrect to say that there's only one slice of bread. No, you have a whole loaf of bread. You have all of the slices.
Okay.
They all exist. Now, all you have to do now is just imagine that the loaf of bread is infinite in both directions. You'll have all of the slices. They're all there. They all exist.
And you're talking about spatial. Like, I don't know how that.
I'm using that as an analogy to try to elaborate on the idea, because it's otherwise pretty hard to conceptualize.
But okay, so your argument to the infinite regress fallacy is that there's infinite sides to bread.
I used an analogy to explain the idea of the B theory of time.
Can you re-explain? Yeah.
So look, okay, maybe I can explain. Maybe this is another way to explain it. Suppose that, like, imagine that you have like a movie, right? Like on a DVD or something like this, or like on a VHS. Now, the whole movie, all moments of the movie, already like they all exist, right?
All right.
All that happens, and like you can jump around by like fast forwarding or rewinding or pausing. But if you fast forward, it doesn't mean that the earlier parts of the movie don't exist anymore, just because you're past them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, when you're in the beginning of the movie, it's not like the later parts of the movie don't exist, just because you haven't gotten there.
I see. So you believe, okay. Say like you're in a movie and you're 1 minute into the movie, right?
Yeah.
But there happens to be an infinite amount of events before that 1 minute.
Yeah.
That point.
Yeah.
How would you ever reach the 1 minute point?
What do you mean by reach? You could just go to the chapter.
No, because
you could go to the you could just go to the chapter display on an old DVD menu, and you could just select, I want that particular moment. You could just go there.
Okay.
If you want, like, if you want to watch that part of the movie, you can just go to that part of the movie.
System.
Yeah.
You're in a system where time, just like time has what? How do I explain this? Okay. If time is infinite, then you would never reach a certain point.
You're talking about time again, like
timeline.
you're talking about time again, as if time doesn't exist until you until you get there or something.
To a certain point in time.
Right, but there's no getting there.
Exactly.
No, getting there is a notion that assumes in a theory of time. I don't assume that notion of time,
right?
that theory of time.
But time passes, right?
No, I take that to be like a feature of our psychology, not a feature of like the universe. And by the way, this is like how we understand like quantum gravities too, which is, you know.
So how do you define time then?
I define time as a dimension of our four-dimensional space-time.
Okay, and can you just like elaborate, because I'm not sure.
So time passes in the same way that space passes, right? And you can move through space, you can move through time.
Okay. So how do you move through time exactly?
The easiest way, the fastest way to do it is to not move through space.
So just stay still?
Yeah. The slowest way to move through time
would just stop.
The slowest way to move through time is to travel as fast as you possibly can.
Relativity.
Through space. Yeah.
Okay. But time still passes. Relativity is like, okay, an hour of time passes here because you're, I don't know, like moving really slow, but like 10 hours pass in a different area because you're moving faster, right? So
if you're moving arbitrarily close to the speed of light, then time passes infinitesimally slowly for you.
Okay, but time still passes no matter what, right?
Right, and that's a restriction because of the fact that we have mass. Like, we can't get to the point where time doesn't pass, where clocks stop ticking.
Interesting.
But that's like a fact of physics. It's not like some like, you know, some like philosophically necessary behavior of whatever. Like.
Okay, but the universe is a system, right?
Sure.
So if the system had to have happened at one point, which, would you believe in the Big Bang?
Sure.
Okay, well, the Big Bang would be the start of that system.
No, I don't take that to be the case.
How come? It's the expansion of the universe.
Yeah, I take the Big Bang to be perhaps an important point in the universe's history, but not the beginning of the universe's history.
And okay, so can you tell me what the universe was before the Big Bang?
No.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, and then that's where the contingency theory comes from. That's a proof as to, that's like an argument.
My lack of knowledge is not an argument in favor
I'm
of
not
anything.
talking about your lack of knowledge. I'm talking about the argument. It's an explanation as to as to like before the system began, right? What created the system?
Well, I mean, it absolutely could be the case that there was something before the Big Bang that caused the Big Bang to bang, caused the universe to expand.
Right.
Generally, if you ask cosmologists, the most common view is probably that it was inflation that caused this to happen. And then if you ask cosmologists
You mean
what
expansion of the
No, it's called inflation.
Okay. Tomato, sure.
Inflation is a technical term here. But anyway, if you ask cosmologists what caused inflation to happen, some will say, it happened spontaneously. Others will say it's always been going.
Isn't it the Big Bang theory is an infinitely dense, infinite energy?
No, the Big Bang isn't making a claim about the universe having been in an infinitely dense state.
Whoa.
You're like 40 years out of date there.
No, okay, then what do you consider the Big Bang?
The Big Bang is the rapid expansion of the universe from a hot, dense state. Not infinitely dense, but just dense.
Super dense. Okay. So that would mean the system has a beginning, right?
No.
Well, the what? Then it had to have expanded at some point, right?
Yeah, the expansion perhaps had a beginning. It doesn't mean that the universe had a beginning.
So you just believe it was like what? So okay, what caused it to expand? Let's start with
Well, again, if you ask cosmologists, and I've already said this, if you ask cosmologists, most of them will say that it was inflation that caused it to expand.
How
In
come
particular, a
inflation
process called reheating caused the hot Big Bang to occur.
Okay.
But look, we can go into the cosmology here, and I'm happy to talk about this and teach it, but it's just not really relevant. The point is you made a claim that there'd be you made a claim that an infinite regress is a fallacy, that it's not possible. But you haven't really given any reason for me to think that that's the case.
Well, I made the claim that infinite events, if there was an infinite if there were infinite events before this event, which is me talking to you, for example, then you'd never reach the event of me talking to you.
Right, but why should I believe that that's true?
Because what do you mean? It's logical. It's an infinite regress. That can't be possible.
Where's the impossibility? What's the logical contradiction?
Okay, the proof is me talking to you, right?
Right.
The fact
but
that
what's the proof that it's true that if there were an infinite amount of events before now, that now would never occur? What's the proof of that?
Okay, let me try and explain this. The fact that me and you are this event is occurring means there wasn't an infinite amount of events before this event.
Yeah, why should I believe that?
Because we'd never reached this event.
I don't think that follows. Just because there's an infinite number of events before this event,
time has passed. Infinite events have occurred to reach this point.
There would be an infinite the cardinality.
Can you define to me what infinity means?
Yeah, that there's more than any finite number. There'd be more than any finite number of events in the past. Sure.
No, that's what's it called? A contrast, not a definition.
No, I mean that infinite literally is defined in contrast with the finite. That's what infinite is.
Oh, so it's like an opposite term.
Almost, yeah.
So infinity is something that's not finite.
It's something that it's not strictly just not finite, it's larger than finite.
Larger than finite?
Yeah, because I mean blue is not finite because finite refers to numbers and stuff, and blue's not a number. Infinity is a mathematical concept that refers to something that refers to a similar idea as finite, but is different from it in a very specific way.
Okay, larger than finite.
Yeah.
So would you say that a larger than finite amount of events occurred before we got to this event?
Yeah. At least that's well. Okay, let me clarify. At least that's possible. I'm not set on that view. If the data comes out otherwise, if we do more science and we find out, oh no, actually there is a finite number of events, then fine. But that at least seems possible.
Well, yeah, the events eventually lead up to the inflation, right?
Well, I mean, look, what I'm saying is that, like, I'm not committed to there must have been an infinite number of events prior to this one. What I'm saying is that shouldn't be ruled out as an impossibility.
How come?
You haven't given me a reason to rule it out.
Yeah, I just did. It's impossible to reach an event if there's infinite events before that. If I
Why should I believe that?
Because what do you mean? It's an impossibility. It's a fallacy.
You keep saying it's an impossibility. What's the contradiction?
The contradiction is that to reach this event, you would have to cross infinite events.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a contradiction.
What's the contradiction?
Okay, I think you're not.
A contradiction is when I am simultaneously asserting or believing a proposition P and the negation of that proposition P, not P.
Right.
Right. If I believed that I was both married and a bachelor, where a bachelor means unmarried, then I would be believing a contradiction.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that's not what's happening here.
If there are infinite events to reach an event, is that not a contradiction?
No.
Or at least
what's the contradiction?
The contradiction is that you reached a certain point, a finite point. A finite
you reach well.
You can count
all events are finite, right?
You can count a finite amount of events before this.
Why would I be able to count a finite number of events before this?
Okay, I'm gonna explain.
Yeah.
Because if there was an infinite amount of events, you'd never ever reach this finite event.
If only I had thought of that. If only I had just considered, what if you just repeated what you've been saying this whole time? Like, I'm asking why I should believe that's true. Why should I believe it's true that if there's an infinite number of events before this one, that you couldn't get to this one?
Okay, because infinity and a finite point are contradictory.
Infinity and a finite point. What's the contradiction? What's the P and not P that I'm believing? What's the proposition that I think is true and the proposition I also think is false?
Okay, let me give you a proposition because you want it so bad. Let's see. There are infinite events to reach point A.
Sure.
And
I'm gonna write this down.
Another
P1.
And the second proposition is there are a finite amount of events to reach point A, and point A is finite. Okay.
All right, hold on. So so I rephrased a little bit, but do you agree with this summary of what you think the contradiction is?
Infinite, point 1. There are infinite events before point A. There are finite amount. Okay, point A is finite. There you go.
Okay, so but I don't accept P2. So how am I affirming a contradiction?
You can't not believe it. It's
how can I not believe? Like hold on, I'm doing it. I'm not believing it. I'm not believing it. You can't stop me.
Imagine these are let statements. Let statements.
Let statements.
Okay. Yeah, let statements. Let there be infinite events.
Let there be
because you like math, right?
Infinite events before point A, and then we have let there be finite a finite amount of events before point A. Okay, so I'm just not going to accept P2. Why would I accept that?
Because there's a let statement. You have to.
I don't have to accept whatever premise you want me to accept.
Okay, but it's the idea. It's the point, right? You get the point.
The point is that I'm not asserting a contradiction. I'm just saying that P2 is false and P1 is true.
You told me to prove that they're contradictory. And
look, these two things, yes, these two things are contradictory, and so I would be affirming a contradiction if I believed both of them. But I think P2 is false and P1 is true.
Oh my god! So you're just picking and choosing.
You're trying to show that it's impossible for P1 to be true. Why should I believe that P1 being true is false?
Because P3 is truth.
What does that have to? What does P3 have to do with P1?
They're contradictory. Okay.
P3 and P3 doesn't speak at all about P1, nor does P1 speak about P3.
To reach, okay, so infinity, you can't have an infinite event to reach a finite event.
Okay, now you've said that for the 4th time without actually explaining why I should think it's true.
Okay. When somebody gives you a clear contradiction, you can't just say, I don't believe in the contradiction.
Look, it is, so look, there is a clear, let me give you a clear contradiction.
The definition of that is literally coping. It's
counterposition. Let me give you an example. So there is a true, hold on, I actually have to write something down really quick. Never mind, we're good. So there is a true contradiction. P1, God exists. P2, God does not exist. Oh, there's a contradiction, therefore you can't believe in God. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, but like, it's not, neither of those are true.
Wait, neither of these are true? One of these has to be true. This is a true dichotomy.
Not the second one is wrong.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Oops. I was saying that the second one is wrong.
So you want me to prove? Okay, you want me to prove that there's an infinite amount? Okay.
I want you to prove that the second one is right, or prove that the first one is wrong, because it is a true dichotomy between. So these are a true dichotomy. There is an infinite amount of events before point A. There is a finite amount of events before that. This is a true dichotomy. So one of these must be true. Yeah. My question is, so you have to either prove that the second one is true, or you have to prove that the first one is false.
Okay, and my proof is that point A is finite.
What does that have to do with P1?
It would prove it's wrong because you can't reach.
By the way, can you explain what it means for a point or for like an event to be finite? Because maybe you're just using it in a way that I'm not familiar.
Finite is like a point that like can be kind of. Okay, it's hard to explain, but like I think you know what it means. Can you tell me?
No, I actually don't really know what you mean by a point being finite. Which is why I'm asking for clarification.
A finite point is a point that is reachable, I guess.
A point that is reachable. Okay, so you're saying that. So the argument goes something like this. Either there is an infinite amount of points before point A, or there is a finite amount of events before point A. And then you're saying P2, point A is reachable. That's what you mean by finite, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then what's the valid conclusion here?
The conclusion is that there's the first option is false. Can't be.
It doesn't follow. It like these two, like this proposition is unrelated to this proposition. Whether there's an infinite amount of points infinite amount of events before point A or not, you haven't yet demonstrated that point A being reachable has anything to do with how many events are before point A. That's the thing in question. That's what you have to show. You have to show that because it's reachable, there can't be an infinite number of points before.
Okay, I think I get it. That's hard to prove.
It is.
It is.
Likely because it's false.
Well, absence of... Okay, do you know the proof of absence is not absence of proof?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. However, if it is the case that your claim is false, then it will be impossible to prove, right?
Huh?
Like, if you're wrong, then of course you're not going to be able to prove that you're right, because you're not. And so, just from the conversation, just from the conversations I've had, I've spoken with a lot of people who have all tried to make this effort. None of them have succeeded, which gives me good reason to think that they're probably wrong. Also, there's like arguments to the contrary. For example, you could just make the argument that like this statement is nonsense. It's a category error. And then you wouldn't be able to use any sort of argument to connect point A being reachable to the number of events before point A, because point A being reachable is not a true statement. would be a category error, which is the way that I would typically go if I was making an argument for the B theory of time. But look, it sounds like that there's probably some metaphysics for you to unpack, especially about the theory of time, perhaps. So maybe come back, go read about B theory of time, and come back and we can talk about it later. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I let you go?
I actually have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
If per se that somebody did come up with like a proof that the A's point is a reachable point, would you then believe that God exists?
If you could show that the past is finite, no, I still wouldn't believe that God exists.
What? There would need to, what? Then how would it happen?
Oh, well, because again, I take the B theory of time, and under the B theory of time, there's not an issue with needing like an event to like cause some future event. Like all of the events already exist. So the universe, like the whole four-dimensional space-time, it just exists. Whether or not that whole four-dimensional space-time exists, it is independent of whether or not there is a first moment of time.
In the system, right? It exists in the system, right?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know
The
if you can put it
universe
as a
is
like
by definition a system. What?
that's debatable.
What is a universe?
It might be the conjunction or the union of all systems. The question is whether or not that's a system, because look, there's some technical issues with calling it a system, because then it's not clear. Then like there are certain things that should be true about the universe that like we don't really have reason to think are true.
Well,
if we call the universe
definition
of a system
of a universe, the universe.
A four-dimensional space-time with stuff in it, perhaps. Maybe it doesn't even need stuff in it. Maybe it doesn't even need time, actually.
Would you say that
I would say the universe is everything that exists physically, whatever that means. Yeah, everything that exists or it is the sum total of everything that exists physically.
Fine with that definition. Would you say that everything that exists would need something to start it?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, it's like if you did believe in the finite thingy, right? In the hypothetical that we made.
Yeah.
Would you then believe that there's a starting point, something
there would be a first moment, but that doesn't then follow that there was like some temporal cause for that first moment.
Before the first moment.
There is no before the first moment. It's not even a sensible idea.
Something had to start the first moment, right?
There's by definition there is like it doesn't even make sense to talk about before the first moment, right?
How come?
Because if you're talking about before,
we're jumping into metaphysics, right?
If it's the first moment, there is no before.
There's
no moments before that.
In the system.
We're talking about the first moment, and I imagine you think that time is part of the universe, right?
The 4D thingy, right? The 4D.
Yeah. So the 4D thingy doesn't exist in a temporal sense, right? Right. It's not like there's not a before the 4D thingy. Time exists within the 4D thingy.
Relative to compare it to.
There's no time. Like time is not external to the 4D thing. Time is internal to the 4D thing.
Okay, so there's no time, but there's an event timeline. Not like a timeline, but
that's what time is.
Sequence.
There's no event sequence.
An event sequence.
There's
time
no
is
sequence.
Like, you can measure time. You can measure time. You can't measure an event sequence. Okay.
Sure, you can. You can say that. Look, if you take time to just be a way of sequencing events, then that means that it sounds like you're telling me that there's a sequence of events before time, which is a contradiction.
No, time is different from. Okay, there are two contrasting things. Time is like you said, a four-dimensional thingy, but a sequence of events.
Well, it's a dimension in the four-dimensional thingy. So I said that time can be understood as a way of sequencing events. It's a particular way of sequencing events.
How? I mean, you mean okay, but like that's everything inside of time.
Yeah, I take it that so you can have timeless states of affairs, but those timeless states of affairs can't do anything.
What do you mean?
They can't do anything. Doing things is a thing that happens in time.
Okay, well, can you prove that?
That's just like I mean,
you're making
look,
a claim, a baseless claim.
It's like a process, right?
Okay.
Like doing something is a process, and as far as I'm aware, processes have beginnings and ends, right?
Right.
Or they have durings, and these are all time words.
You don't need So you're saying because they use words that correlate with time, that they have to be have to follow the rule of being like part of time.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't know how to make sense of anything happening
Metaphysics?
if there is no time for it to be happening in. I don't know how to make sense of
No,
that.
you can. It's a sequence of events. There
Well,
doesn't
but
need
if
to
so,
be
if you have a sequence of events, then you have an ordering of events, which, you know, we said that that's a thing that time is.
No, that correlates. It's
So
part
okay,
of-
so you're
it's-
suggesting that you
it's
can have
part
a
of the
sequence of
description.
events. You can have a sequence of events without time. So, but given that sequence, that means that there's a before and an after, right?
There's a start and an end, not a before and an after. But
Well, no,
sure.
I mean, like if you have a sequence of say 5 events, then the third
Yeah.
event is after the second event.
Right.
And what does it mean for one thing to be after another thing
Okay, but that's
when we're talking
okay, so
about
you're
events?
Sure, yeah, but like that's in in a closed system. I'll use the word system because I don't know your definition.
That's fine. You can use that system.
Right.
This is a technical notion that I was making.
Right. So time would the thing you're referring to would be in a closed system. I'm talking outside of a system where it's just a sequence of
So
events.
you're just saying that there is a way that you can have a sequence of events that, so can these events, so yeah, there's a way that you can have a sequence of events or a sequence of states of affairs absent time.
Sure, yeah.
How are you sequencing them? How are you distinguishing between these events?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, I mean,
They're different
what is determining the sequence?
By counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so how do
they
you, so
come
which
after each
event do
other.
you assign 1? Which event do you assign 2, etc.?
The one that comes after the other.
Okay, so the way that you are defining these things is in terms of a temporal sequence.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to be in a finite. I mean, in a closed system for that to be true, because time, like
The
you said,
universe
is
doesn't have to be a closed system, by the way. But secondly,
that's interesting.
I don't see how that gets you out of the issue that you're defining the sequence temporally.
Okay, defining it temporally doesn't mean that it's in a closed system.
I never said the closed system is unrelated here. You said
No,
that
but-
you can have a sequence of events outside of time, and then when I asked you how you constructed the sequence, you defined it temporally. But if you're outside of time, you can't define things temporally.
Okay, so you want me to define it untemporally?
You need some other way of defining a sequence.
Okay, but there's no other way. except for
That's
temporal.
exactly my issue. I don't think that you can have a sequence, like an
because there isn't a
ordered
definition
sequence with
for
like a
it
before
doesn't
and an
mean that
after.
It's not possible, right?
Okay, so you're
just 'cause there isn't
you're
a
asking me
word,
to
an
believe in a
English
thing
word for
that
it.
is impossible for me to conceptualize. For me to
Just
make
'cause it
any
doesn't
sense
have an
of.
English word.
It's not even the lack of an English word. It's a lack of like ability to conceptualize it. Like that would be like look, what you're telling me to do is you're telling me to go to the
Okay, well,
North
if
Pole.
I can conceptualize it, then I think
You're telling me to go to the North Pole and then keep going north. Like I don't know what that means. What does it mean to keep going north when I'm already at the North Pole? That's the most north I can go.
then that's super hard to describe because there's no English. There's no
Right, but in
right.
in this case, this is conceptually impossible to, or this is impossible to conceptualize because what you're asking me to do is impossible, and I'm saying that seems like what's happening here. You're
Okay,
asking
say
me to
I
imagine
define it with,
you're asking me to imagine a sequence of events without time, but while simultaneously telling me that sequence of events is ordered temporally. And that seems impossible.
Okay, say it is ordered temporally. Then what becomes the issue?
Then there's time. And so then then the first moment of time that we thought was the first moment of time isn't the first moment of time.
Can you elaborate?
Well, so look, the thinking was that like, okay, suppose that there was a first moment of time. And then you said that there would be a cause for it. And then we had this whole discussion about causes and like causes have to be in time, like all this stuff. He said, oh, well, you can just have like a sequence of events before that. And then I'm like, okay, well, then what does that mean? You say, okay, well, suppose that it is a temporal sequence of events. Well, now your sequence of events, which was before the first moment of time, well, what you thought was the first moment of time is just not the first moment of time anymore. Because there's stuff before it.
Okay, what if there was like, I see. Oh, this is hard to explain. Okay, but then that falls into metaphysics and like you can't really explain metaphysics. You just
Sure you can. That's what philosophers do all the time.
Okay, well, I'm trying to right now. Say, okay, how about this? Would you say that there's the inflation of the universe? Can you tell me what the universe was before the inflation?
Well, again, if you ask most cosmologists, they'll say that there was no before inflation. They'll say that inflation has always been happening.
So it's always been inflating.
Yeah.
Okay, what about before it was inflating?
It was always inflating. There was no before.
But remember, time is finite, so there has to be a start, right? You.
So if there was a finite, if inflation had a beginning, because there are some people who think that inflation had a beginning, then it depends on who you ask what was before it. Some will say that there was like a spaceless, like Stephen Hawking and James Hartle would say that there was like a timeless, purely spatial state of affairs that geometrically gave rows.
That's just false, because then if there was nothing, then it can't come.
Who said that there was nothing? I didn't say that there was nothing.
Okay, you're describing nothing.
I'm not describing nothing. I'm describing a purely spatial state of affairs with no time.
Okay, but space is something. It's a dimension.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't say there was nothing. I said
what is before space? Nothing.
Well, so if you're in a purely spatial state of affairs where there's no time, questions about before are category errors. That's like saying what's before the North Pole? Like that's a nonsense question.
Okay. I mean, no, but like, okay, so before, so you're saying time, okay, this is, okay, I see. That's hard to describe. Okay, well then, what's the problem with there being a creator? If per se, time was finite and it had a start, what would be wrong?
Well, if time is finite, then again, I'm not sure how you can have anything happen before, whatever that means, in the absence of time. So how could anything happen like a creator? How could a creator create anything if there's no time around to, allow that process to take place?
I see. I'd have to research that.
But look, counterposition. We've been going at this for a while, so I'm going to let you go. But go back, research it, and feel free to come back and we can talk about it later, okay?
Wait, when's your next live?
Next week. Same day.
Every Sunday? I mean,
no, there's also one on Sunday. That's correct. I will be live on Sunday on the Unapologetic Show.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Sorry, I gotta. All right, let's bring up our next, or let's read some super chats and we'll bring up our next guest. Ooh, lots of super chats. You guys are so generous. From Eat Some Shorts with the $10, can you imagine being so triggered by Blitz that you're willing to pettily spend money to rage in the comments? Are there no alphas willing to take on this 7'4" physics baddie with beautiful looks? Look, it just sounds like there aren't. And that's okay. Look, I understand it can be intimidating. From Scottish again with the £5. Premise 1, skeptic has no viewpoint. Premise 2, a skeptic with a viewpoint isn't a skeptic. Conclusion, if you have a position, you aren't a skeptic. I don't know why I would think that either one of those are true. I think skeptics can have viewpoints. You can be skeptical of a particular viewpoint, for example. So I think that both premises are false. From Gentleman Viking with the $5, I have a Chaos Commander deck. No win con. It tries to change the base mechanics of the game into an unrecognizable state. Is that ontologically evil? It is. It is ontologically evil. From Vicinal Elk with the $5, do you play Standard or Commander or what? My favorite deck is a Maronar Commander deck. Yeah, I play Commander only. With a bunch of rat colonies and other nasty stuff. Ew. From Scottish again with the £10. Atheism is delusional nihilism. I'm here, a consistent atheist, nihilist. Philosophically, you assert meaning from a meaningless viewpoint. To have meaning, you need a creator. I didn't really understand what you were saying. I don't assert that there is meaning intrinsically in the universe. I assert that we as subjects can produce subjective meaning. And from Blue, with the 2 Canuck bucks, they can't defeat their monkey ears. I don't know what that means. From Tim Davidson with the $5, all hail Algoritmo and the trinity of like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, everybody. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on TikTok, tap that screen, share it with as many people as you possibly can. Get this out to as many people as we can. And if you want to join the Discord server, there's a way to do it. discord.gg/drblitz. Go there. From Scottish with the 10 pounds again, still not done to convince someone means they have pre-assumed beliefs and positions. Therefore, atheists yell their contradictory viewpoint without realizing it. Very observant, very rational. Okay. From Mindforged Manacle with the $5, caller thinks infinite time equals counting down from infinity to a specific moment. That's why he falsely compares it to infinite regress. Yeah, that's what happened. And that's what always happens for people who reject the impossibility of an infinite regress. From Kane Malice with the $2, old school Kamigawa, respect. Yeah, I have a commander deck for each one of the 5 colors where the commander is from old school Kamigawa. That's when I started playing Magic, so soft spot in my heart for that. From you, HFV with the £5, if one god decide to exist as 2 or 3 or infinite number of god, who can stop him if God is all powerful? Question is for one god believers. That's a good point. From I'm the Big Cheese with $5, never reach a moment in time, asserts that an actor experiencing the universe time relies on an internal time that is separate. Yeah, look, this whole notion of reaching time is like predicated like on our experiences, basically. But to say that has something to do with the actual universe is a little bit confused. From Tim Davidson with the $5, your timeline started at your birth, but your mother was there and her timeline started at her birth, but her mother was there, like that. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that. From Duke of Shaska with the €2, you and I don't know what that's going at. But Scottish with the £20, thank you so much, Scottish. You're so generous. God is a philosophical, abstract concept, so when you argue in this frame, you always prove a God does exist, so what atheists do, prove it empirically, which requires a bunch of metaphysical assumptions, circular stupidity. You got me. Actually, no, you're wrong. It doesn't require a bunch of metaphysical assumptions and circular stupidity. Incorrect, actually. From the Blonde Nightmare with $5, there are infinite numbers between 0 and 1, but we can traverse them. There are infinite moments in time from now to 10 seconds from now, but we can traverse them. That's exactly it. Yeah. From Scottish again. Oh, no, that's the same one. That's the same one. From Tim Davidson with the $5, people that believe in infinite regresses can't cross a room. True. Very true. From Cardiac Kid with the $5, by this logic, his infinite God would never reach the moment of the alleged creation event. Oh, that's a good point. And from Vicinal Elk with the $10, if you record 1 second, then there are an infinite number of timestamps between the start and that 1 second mark. However, you can expand that second and stop it at any point within that 1 second. Yeah, also true. From Reverend Nate with the 5 Canuck bucks, profoundly confused, unjustifiably confident, and they think repeating themselves is how conversations work. You're getting all kinds of gems today. Look, not a lot of people have had time to actually think, like, this is the first conversation a lot of these people have had about this kind of stuff, and that's fine. They're going to make mistakes. From Scottish with the £10, I can be argued against by a theist because I hold a consistent position. But to argue with a skeptic is stupid on its face. You aren't a skeptic. I refuse to call in with false skeptics. Well, look, you don't have to call in as long as you keep sending money to RageBait. I'm happy with that. From C Design Proponent Cyst with the 5 Canuck bucks, my layman understanding is that Jason Lyle's work is just ad hoc and unfalsifiable geocentrism for light. What's your perspective on his cope physics? It's exactly that. From Kieran Dave with the $5, I for one really enjoy these half-baked Phil bros getting fully baked on your show and realizing, oh, actually the burden of my claim is really high. Yeah, don't make big claims unless you can demonstrate them. That's the issue. From Scottish again with the €5, stop there, false skeptic. Time is a transcendental. I don't grant that under your viewpoint. Okay. I grant it under my viewpoint. Fight me. From Ekipo with the €5, time is an illusion that helps things make sense. So we're always living in the present tense. Yeah, I agree. From Scottish again with the €5, I have one question, false skeptic. Does the immaterial exist at all to you? If so, prove it empirically and no assertions, e.g. it's self-evident. Oh, I'm not an empiricist, so I don't think that only the empirical exists. Second, you'd have to define what you mean by the immaterial. If by immaterial you just mean not made of matter, then yeah, sure, photons exist, and we can prove that empirically. From Lord Mirak with the €5, none of this metaphysical stuff means that I shouldn't wear two different fabrics together, that I cannot eat shellfish SMH. I will continue to snack. Please continue to snack. Absolutely do it. Oh, I'm sorry, that was euros. You're right, not pounds. Sir Binder Bintine sent 1,000 joules on TikTok, and I appreciate that a lot. From Scottish with the £5 again. Damn, you dug your grave, meaning subjective, results in morals being subjective. Yeah, I'm not a moral realist. You got me. From Turdfurter with the $10. Thank you so much, Turdfurter. How do physicists like Hawking go from no time to inflation without an event? If there were an event to trigger time, in essence, this is the start of time, just trying to understand the position. It's a good question. So the way that it's understood by Hawking and Hartle, and by cosmologists who take this view, is that time wasn't triggered. Time wasn't an event that was like caused to happen. Merely time emerged geometrically from a non-temporal state. And I say emerged as emerged sounds like it's like a thing that happened in time, but really you have to kind of zoom out and view the whole timeline as existing. Then there's the one side of the timeline where there's only space, and as a result of the geometry, the other side of the timeline has time. That's the idea. From Gerain with the $5, is there any possible experiment that can distinguish between A and B time? I mean, sort of relativity does that, but some philosophers would argue otherwise. From Scottish with the £5, incorrect, no counter-argument. Counter-argument, wave function monism, all mathematical objects exist in all mathematical objects exist and objects are identical to their mathematical description. Fight me. From Boogie with the $2, extraordinary claims require extraordinary beliefs. Or extraordinary balls, I'm sorry. And from Lord Mirak, oh, I already answered that. From Scottish with the £5, if morals are subjective, dictators are justified. Prove it. And from Mindforged Manacle with the $2, Scottish gave you like £80 in one stream. Yeah, he absolutely did, and I'll keep fighting him in the comments for it. All right, let's bring up our next guest. Apologies for the long number of super chats, but you know, Scottish just has to get his point across. You know, he just has to. All right, let's talk to Sharon. Sorry, that was 10 minutes of super chats, y'all.
Hello?
Sorry, that was 10 minutes of super chats, y'all. Oh, Sharon. Oh, Sharon. I gotta... Oh, it's so much better. Okay, I don't know. That was really, really loud. Sharon, do you believe a God exists?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and which one would that be?
Well, I'm going to give you an argument for the fact that God should exist.
Well, first, can you tell me which God you think exists, just so I know, just so I don't strawman you?
What do you mean by which God? Which
do you
religion?
believe in Brahman, or like in Brahma, or are you Shinto? Do you believe in Ahura Mazda? Like, what's the name of the God that you believe in?
In Hebrew, you say Elohim.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Great. Okay, can you offer me an argument then?
Yes, and my argument is a bit biological.
Sure.
From biology. Well,
I take it your name is Sharon, by the way, not Sharon.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So, if you go to a microscopic level, you have DNA. DNA comprised of 4 bases, and these bases they produce a messenger RNA. That the messenger RNA produces protein. That the protein has to fold in some sort of complex dimensional way for it to work, and that's very, very complicated thing to do.
Yeah, protein folding is a complicated process. I agree.
And if you try to measure how long would it take to build let's say, just one protein, hemoglobin. Hemoglobin in the blood cells is comprised of 574 amino acids, which is very, very complicated. That's my point. And my point is that I don't know if there is like a God that created everything, and I don't know, all powerful, almighty, and stuff. But what I am trying to say is that this kind of complexity, for even one protein, it requires some kind of intelligence. I don't know if it's God, but it requires some kind of intelligence.
Why would I think that hemoglobin as a protein didn't just evolve from simpler things or from other things?
Well, it could, but let's try to calculate mathematically how long would it take to just create one protein that is 574, built of 574 amino acids, which amino acids, I don't know if the crowd and you know, there are 20 amino acids. So there has to be, if you try to calculate the odds of that, it will be, I don't know the number, but infinite was thrown here a lot of times. Maybe infinite amount of time.
But it's not evolving. It's not. The evolution of hemoglobin is not just you take a bunch of random atoms, you put them in a bag and you shake it up, and then you just count how many times you have to shake it in order to get hemoglobin. It evolved from a different molecule. So like the odds are not like extraordinarily low. In fact, like apparently there's a pretty good story about how hemoglobin evolved. Apparently, there was a separation event, or a separation event that occurred after lampreys diverged from jawed vertebrates between myoglobin and hemoglobin, allowing for different functions between the two different molecules to develop. Myoglobin has more to do with oxygen storage, while hemoglobin is tasked with oxygen transport. So like there is like at least, like I'm not a biologist, right? But like there is at least a story that biologists say, as far that I imagine that they probably have pretty good reason to believe, about the evolution of hemoglobin from simpler things.
It definitely did evolve from simpler things.
So then why would I think that hemoglobin is unlikely to occur?
I'm not denying that evolution exists and everything occurred from basic to more and more complex. I'm just saying that in this process, there must have been an intelligent being, I don't know, being or whatever, something that has some kind of something we don't really understand today.
But I mean, like, look, it's just not unlikely for mutations to happen, to go from a slightly different molecule to the molecule that you want. That's just not that rare. It doesn't take that many. It just doesn't take that much.
But
it doesn't cost that much to believe.
That's not my point.
So then what's the point?
The point is that even though it can happen as an accident or something that just happens in time, the fact that we have such a complex system, it shows that there must be some kind of a planner.
How do you figure?
Because if you try to just crunch the numbers, and I think you are good with numbers. Mm-hmm. If you try to build a very simple protein that will do something, like actually do some kind of something in the microscopic level, you won't. Nowadays we have no idea. We always have to look for something that happened in nature.
We have no.
Yeah.
Here's a paper. Came out 5 years ago, published in the Journal of the American Chemical Society. So it's not like paper's not like a schlub, not a nothing paper. Let me make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. And I mean, like this has it, like their proposed mechanism hasn't been proven, but they're providing an explanation by which you could have the spontaneous emergence of self-replicating molecules containing nucleobases and amino acids in like a natural, non-biological way. Like they're giving an account. Now, this isn't proof that this is the account that did happen, but it's at least like possible that this is a thing that can happen naturally, just going from producing self-replicating stuff from nothing, or from pure chemistry.
I agree with you. There is no denying that it happened naturally, and it just I don't know. Maybe it happened in a meteorite that came to Earth, but it happened naturally. Nothing really started it. Okay, but I'm just saying that something is happening that we don't completely understand in biology, like the amount of it's like saying a computer can be built just like that. No.
What's the part that we don't understand though? Like the evolutionary process gets us from less complex to more complex. That evolutionary process is triggered by mutations, whether it's accidental duplications, whether it's transpositions, whether it's like breaking up and like cuts and remergers. Those like there are various mechanisms to trigger the evolutionary process, and then selection events pick out which modifications are most beneficial. So the actual change of structure over time is well understood, and there's a lot of good research on like how life started in the first place. So like what's the thing that we're not understanding?
You're a scientist, right?
Yeah. So
you know that if in order to investigate and research something, you need to have some kind of question and some way to research it.
Yeah.
But some things science just cannot really question. Like there is no question like how everything started, because we can't really.
That's a totally valid question. Why is that not a good question?
It's a good question, but how would you research it? There is no tool.
Well, if you're talking about life, then like chemists would like try to, they would be like, okay, well, where did life come from? They would form a hypothesis, and then they would go test it in a laboratory and see if their hypothesis, like they would say, okay, well, life happened because these chemicals were with these chemicals, and then something happened, and then they would go reproduce those conditions and see if it worked. That would be a way to test a hypothesis of how life happened. There are other, like if you're talking about how the universe happened, well, that's probably a little bit trickier, but like we can, for example, go see, was the Big Bang the beginning or not? And we can test that using things like gravitational wave detectors. I mean, these are scientific questions.
It's just like you said when somebody asked you, but what happened before the Big Bang? And you said, I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes in science we just don't know, because we can't really research what we want.
Look, me not knowing doesn't mean that it's impossible to know, right? I'm saying I don't know because we currently don't have the data. I'm not convinced one way or the other yet.
Exactly. It means that we don't have a way right now to research it.
Yeah. Well, no. Hold on. We have ways to research it. We just don't have the answer. Like there are people who are actively working on it. I mean, I'm actively working on it. So
what happened before the Big Bang? We don't have a way to research it.
Of course we do. I'm actively researching it. I'm working on a project specifically about that question.
And how would you do it if you don't have a way to start? How would you do that?
How would I do what? Well, so I'm a theorist. So like my job is to like come up with models that are in principle testable, that are, respect various theoretical virtues. Like, are they simple? Are they, do they make predictions, etc. So my job is to come up with models that can then be tested. And then you can go out and test them. And you can go out and test them by looking at the cosmic microwave background radiation. You can go measure gravitational waves. You can do all sorts of things.
Okay. And let's say that you can research it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with what I'm saying, that some questions it's very hard for science to answer, because you need to isolate some kind of in some kind of way what you're researching, and sometimes a question is too general, too big to answer by science. Would you agree with some of what I said?
Perhaps like science is not the end all be all. Like there are questions that science can't talk to. Like for example, suppose that we're trying to figure out whether there exists, you know, a supernatural entity, but that supernatural entity had nothing to do with our universe at all. It didn't create our universe. It doesn't interact with our universe at all. It's not physical in any sense of the word. It's just a thing that exists separate. Well, science has no way to talk about that because science can only talk about things that are like, you know, detectable or measurable from the interior of our universe. And so like there are ways that we could like talk about things about our universe, like whether our universe had a beginning, what caused the beginning, etc. What we can't talk about is things that like don't interact with the universe at all.
Okay. And okay, can I ask you another question?
Yeah, sure.
When you talked about time, do you think that the way you describe time has some kind of contradiction with free will?
Yes, it depends on how you understand free will. I don't think that free will in the sense of like you can always choose to do otherwise. I don't think that kind of free will exists.
So everything we do is already exists?
Well, either it's already determined or it will be determined by some sort of random quantum process. That's up for debate, but I think that like everything that we do is just determined by what's going on in our brain. And like our brain is like a physical thing with like atoms and molecules, and like those obey the laws of physics. So whatever we do is ultimately a result of the laws of physics, in my view.
Okay, that brings me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a thought, some kind of thought, when I decided to say something,
mm-hmm.
How is that happened in the physical world? It
well,
happens
look,
molecules colliding.
I'm not a neurologist, but like, you know, so I'm not going to give you a definitive answer, but like it seems plausible that in the same way that we form like imagine that I asked you to, I don't know, find what 12 times 11 is, right? What is 12 times 11? Well, if you didn't know it just by pure rote, you would have to like think about it for a little bit. And I kind of analogize that process of like thinking about doing the calculation in your head as like the same kind of thing that happens in a computer. Like in a computer, there are like various transistors that are flipping on and off, and there are various pulses of electricity going in various places, and then you know the computation is done and it spits out an answer. I would think that it's similar to our brain.
Okay, so all of that happens if you try to locate exactly where it happens. You can say it happens in some kind of chemistry, like you said, something that goes on and something that goes off, right? But eventually, like let's say a memory, you have your memory. Where does it stays? Where is it?
It's stored in a particular configuration of neurons, in the same way that your computer memory is stored in a particular configuration of transistors.
So you're saying it has like a physical place.
Yeah, or at least like it might be spread out. So it might be spread out over a large area, but like it's at least like represented by like a figure, or it's encoded by a physical like arrangement of stuff. Sharon, we are very, very far off topic, so I am going to let you go because I want to bring on one more guest. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. All right, let's read some super chats and we'll bring up our next guest. From Duke of Shaska with the €5. Thank you so much, Duke. To Scottish, you're wrong because time is coincidental according to the Hasegawa-Walter dissonance limit. I have no idea what that is. Hasegawa-Walter dissonance limit. I don't think that's real. I think that's made up. But I appreciate the €5. From Scottish with the £5, math, a transcendental mind-dependent concept exists physically. Another €5 or another £5, mind-dependent requires a mind also had to exist before we did. You just argued God's existence. Ouch. I appreciate the £10 there, Scottish. From Jeffrey Ryan with the $2. All hail lamp. All hail lamp indeed. That's why there's a lamp, you know, down there and over there. From Jeff with the $20. Thank you so much, Jeff. I love this topic and great point caller. Thank you for this discussion. Yeah, he seemed like a chill guy. Happy to talk to him. From I Am the Big Cheese with the $10. God is a mind that created the cosmos. Anything else is categorically not a god. It is intellectually bankrupt to use God as metaphysical catch-all variable. I agree. At least that's what the English word typically means. From fifth? Avi Inc. with the $5. 574 isn't even that big a number. Scottish sent $574 today alone. DNA proves evolution, not God. I don't understand equals God every time for these zealots. I don't think he sent $574. He did send a lot though. From Scottish with the £5, can you prove macro evo via the scientific method? You would first have to define it. Like define the distinction between macroevolution and microevolution. From Blue by 4MJ with the 5 Canuck bucks, monkeys' ears are matching to humans, evolution proof. There you go. You heard it here first. Oh no, I doxed myself. From Scottish again with the £5, speciation isn't macroevolution, it's an assumption, and species, are they universal or subjective? Watch the merry-go-round unfold. Oh, species are of course subjective, but like, or perhaps I shouldn't use the word subjective. It's a category, like all categories is subjective, but like the distinction between, say, a horse and a mouse, there is a genuine distinction there, right? That distinction exists. From Turdford with the $5, you communicate well. Do you teach? I would like my son to take a course from you. He's a junior in high school, university, online courses. I did teach when I was a grad student. I'm not teaching now, except this, I guess. From Scottish with the £5, I like that visible cognitive dissonance, false skeptic. I liked it too, I guess. And from Fifth Avi Inc., again with the $5, prophecy. I predict the next caller's argument will boil down to I don't know equals God. I am the 5th proponent of the one true God, atheismo, all hail lamp. No, it's not all hail lamp. It's I love lamp, or we love lamp. All right, y'all. Let's move on to our next guest. Let's talk to Daniel Cormier. Daniel, how's it going?
How's it going, Blitz?
You have some serious background noise, Daniel. Are you able to get to a quieter space?
Yeah, I do apologize. I'm actually at work. How's this? Is it a little better for you?
Yeah. So, Daniel, do you believe in a God? Oh, he left. All right. Let's talk to Tubu. Tubu, how's it going? Oh, I'm sorry, not Tubu. I have to bring up Madmatic. I promised. I very much promised. I'm so sorry. Madmatic, come on. I know I kept you waiting for a while, but don't let me down now. Meanwhile, from I Am the Big Cheese, we have $5. Intelligent design argument insists God must have a designer. An infinite chain of designers. Indeed. An infinite chain of designers, indeed. All right, Madmatic is not connecting. This is unfortunate. All right, let's bring up Bolo Lol Bobo. Bolo, how's it going?
Good, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. Bolo, do you believe in a God?
I do believe in a God.
Okay, and Bolo, what God is it that you believe in?
Jesus Christ.
Okay, cool. So look, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe that. What would you say is like the best argument or evidence or, you know, piece of data that you could present me that would make me, you know, at least plausibly convince me that you might be right.
Can you just tell me what you mean by you don't believe in Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I don't think that he was the Messiah. I don't think that he
Okay,
was
but you
God's
believe he
son.
exists.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we agree on his existence.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the historical evidence of his existence, his crucifixion, and his resurrection? Do you not?
Well, his existence, I don't have an
right.
issue with. I mean, like, you know, it's super plausible that there was like an itinerant preacher named Yeshua who lived around 2,000 years ago. That's
Right.
there's nothing remarkable there. The fact that people wrote about him probably suggests that he exists. I would even believe that he was crucified. Like, that's a thing that Romans did. As far as I know, Romans did that during this time period. So it's at least plausible that he was crucified. I don't really have a good reason to think that he rose from the dead, because that's not really a thing that usually happens. In fact, I'm not sure if that's ever happened. So you'd have to give me a good reason to think that that happened, like a really good reason, right?
Why is it that this historical evidence that they do provide within the Gospels you choose to reject, but other historical evidence you're okay with?
Well, look, the question is, how do I want to phrase this? The question is, what are the priors? So do you know what priors are?
What happened before?
No, so it's a way of thinking about like how much you believe something is true.
Okay.
So like we talk about the language of like credence. So if you have like 90% credence, then you're like 90% sure you're right. If you have like 99% credence, then you're like 99% sure you're right. So and you can change your priors given new evidence. So like if you can change your credence. If my credence is initially like 50%, maybe I'm just not sure one way or the other, and then somebody presents me new evidence for, I don't know, option A, then my credence in option A will go up and my credence in option B will go down, for example. And so the priors are just what your credence is in something before the evidence is presented. So it's just like your initial thought, right? And so, you know, my credence or my priors or my prior probability for like a guy named Yeshua existing, you know, around 2,000 years ago in like, you know, the Middle East and like in and around Jerusalem, I don't have a really good reason to think that that's like hard to believe. Like that seems like a normal thing. So like my priors would probably start out at like 50%. You know, he either did or he didn't believe, like, or he either did or didn't exist. Like there's not a lot of commitment there. It's just like not a big deal.
It's important that most historians almost do agree that he existed.
Yeah. So then given the evidence that we have all of these documents, that increases my credence. So that now I'm pretty confident that Jesus existed, right? Now, and the same is true for crucifixion. Like crucifixion seems like reasonable, like it's a thing that probably happened. So my priors might be maybe a little bit lower, maybe 40%, and then I look at the evidence and it goes up. But if you're trying to ask me what my priors are for a man rising from the dead, in my experience, people don't rise from the dead. So my priors are going to be like 0.0000001%. And so even if you can present some evidence for Jesus being crucified, and let's say that evidence increases the priors to 90%, that evidence won't increase the priors from 0.0001% to more than 50% because you're starting out so much lower.
Okay, but what would your priors be if this particular person not only prophesied to do this, he told his followers that this would happen. So not only did he go into the event of the
I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, it is. This was all a prophecy, and he fulfilled this prophecy. He was the lamb that was to be slaughtered. That was said.
A person can't really like I think you're confusing like the things that he said and the prophecies that he allegedly fulfilled, right?
Okay.
So like which prophecy are you talking about? Are you talking about like prophecies that Jesus himself made while he was alive? Or are you talking about prophecies that like the ancient Hebrews, ancient Israelites made?
I see what you mean. So yeah, there is a little bit of both there, right? Because we do know that that the perfect lamb would be slaughtered. We knew that far back. But
Jesus wasn't a lamb, right?
Right, but I mean, obviously not a lamb, but he is what?
So it doesn't sound like he fulfilled that prophecy.
Well, that's not what it's supposed to be. He's what a lamb represents.
Well, but then it sounds like you're interpreting the prophecy to make it true rather than it like actually being true. Like that's an interpretation thing.
Well, it's the old Hebrew tradition was that you would slay a spotless, perfect lamb, and then that would
Was
cleanse
Jesus
you.
thoughtless?
I said spotless. Sorry.
Oh, okay, I misheard.
Yeah. So there has to be no imperfections on this lamb, and then we would slay this lamb. That lamb, that sacrifice, takes our sins. That's an old Hebrew tradition.
Yeah. So, but Jesus isn't a lamb, so like
this is the same thing with Jesus, except he will do this forever. So we never have to do those traditions again, and he completely fulfilled the law.
But this isn't an example of a prophecy being fulfilled, right?
I disagree. I don't think, of course, he's not a lamb. It's not meant to be interpreted as a literal lamb.
Well, okay, but then
That's
so
why they
look,
call him
if
the
I was a
Lamb.
Christian, then I might agree that that prophecy was fulfilled. But like I'm not a Christian, so I'm not going to take like your specific interpretation of the ancient Hebrew text and understand that it was actually referring to Jesus, because I don't think that it was referring to Jesus. So
okay, that's fine if you don't think it was referring to Jesus.
Look, so in order,
I think
here's my view about prophecy. Here's my view about
and-
prophecy. So prophecy can like prophecy could be a very, very compelling case, but there are a few like requirements in my view that are needed in order for a prophecy to be considered as a reasonable prophecy, or as like a reasonable prophecy that actually does anything for your beliefs. One, it has to be specific. So it has to refer to specific people or places or times or events. Has to be specific, right? It can't be like vague. It can't be like metaphorical. Like it has to be specific. It has to be, God has told me that this will happen, that Jerusalem will collapse, blah, 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 you know, something like that, right? Second thing is it has to be time limited. It can't just be, this will happen eventually, especially when it's talking about something that could feasibly happen eventually. Right? Like if I prophesied, if I claimed right now, God has spoken to me and has told me that the American empire will crumble, like, okay, that'll probably happen eventually. If on the other hand, I say God has told me that the American empire will crumble in the year 2032 with the assassination of President blah, blah, that would be like a really good prophecy if it came true. So it has to be specific and it has to be time bound. Those are essentially like the two requirements in my view that are necessary for a prophecy to be useful. Otherwise, it's basically up to interpretation, or is sufficiently vague that like anybody could have made that prophecy and it didn't require God.
Well, it's raising on the third day. If somebody says they're going to raise on the third day and they raise on the third day, you have...
Yeah, that would be a good example. Can you show me where that happened?
Sure. I got to die.
Yeah, sure. By the way, I can't hear you when the app is minimized, but...
Oh, sorry. My bad. That's what I got to do to get there, though.
No, that's fine. Just take your time. I'm just letting you know I can't hear you.
Okay, so I can grab the specific passages just from the headline, just from what it gives me, the overview. The headline is that he predicted his betrayal, his resurrection, and he'd raise on the third day. I can go grab those specifically.
Yeah,
and
please,
I can pull those.
please grab the verses where it says something about he will raise on the third day. And by the way, to be clear, well, okay, I mean, you can go find it and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Do.
So from what I got is Mark 9, verse 31.
So this is awkward. So we have Mark 9. I'll just pull it up really quick just so everybody can see it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, let me pull it up on the other tab. Oh, I should have you here. Okay, there we go. Okay, here's Mark 9, verse 31, just so everybody can see it. So everybody knows you're not lying. It says, because he was teaching his disciples, he said to them, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise. Right, so it does say that. Here's the issue. It doesn't say this before it happened, right? So Mark was written at least 30 years, 40 years after Jesus was killed, presumably.
That's our first known account, right? That we
no, I mean, like scholars
okay.
agree that like Mark was written 30 or 40 years after Jesus died, and that's like on the early side. But like surely Mark was written after Jesus died, right? Because it talks about Jesus resurrecting, so it must have been written after Jesus died.
Okay, do you think? That means it in your point of view.
No, the issue is that it just wasn't written down. The prophecy wasn't written down before the event happened, right?
Not before the event happened, but this is what eyewitness testimonies say that he was telling him before he died.
Right, but that's the thing in question. I mean, like, look, if the text is, I mean, like, look, the Bible also says that, you know, Jesus resurrected. I don't think that that's true. So why would I believe that this particular verse is like an accurate rendering of what Jesus said?
I mean, you don't have to. I don't think that it demeans it in any way if it's in that same exact time period of his death and the people that saw him and they write down these.
The issue is that I don't think Jesus actually
at all.
I don't think Jesus actually said this.
Well, okay. I mean, that's what the people that saw him, the people that knew him, said that he said. So, I mean, for you,
right?
Okay,
That's what the gospel writers said he said. But the gospel writers were trying to convince us that he was fulfilling a prophecy. So of course they're going to write, oh yeah, he prophesied he died, and then he prophesied he would die and then be resurrected, and then he did. Like, of course that's what they would write. They have an interest.
You don't know Jesus, right? I don't know.
I not personally know.
Exactly. Well, so we don't know Jesus in the sense of we never spoken to him personally.
Right.
But the ones that did, when they write down his accounts, his teachings, what he did, what he said, and then I give you an example of that within the Gospels, and you just deny it flat out.
Look, we don't know who wrote this. We don't know that the person who wrote this ever spoke with Jesus.
All right, that gets into a different debate of diving into the historicity of all that, which honestly I'm not equipped. I can't go back and look at who wrote this. It's a lot of people have different opinions on it. But
I mean, like, the point is we don't know who wrote it. Like, this is, look, so my view is that the Gospels, and maybe this will just help clarify why I'm skeptical here. My view is that the Gospels were basically the result of decades of decades of a story morphing. I mean, like we have stories of like George Washington that aren't true because, you know, stories morph over time. I figure that Jesus was crucified somewhere around 30 AD, something like this. And he had followers. He was a preacher. He had followers. And as a result,
he lived his life.
Yeah. He lived his life, and he preached for a few years before he died. And he had followers, and then those followers were very distraught, and some of those followers started telling the things that Jesus did. He was telling about all of the great things that Jesus did, and over time, those stories got more and more embellished to the point where Jesus became a divine figure that was, you know, predicting his own resurrection, etc. That's what I figure happened. That originally the original disciples weren't claiming this, and that rather. This is just a story that morphed. Maybe some of the disciples claimed that he resurrected. Maybe they're like, oh, I saw him in a vision. I was sobbing after he was crucified, and I saw him in a vision, and that story morphed to I saw him physically appear in front of me.
Okay, the problem with this argument in particular is this is your interpretation of everything. This is what you believe happened.
It seems more likely. Right, it seems more likely than the alternative.
I don't think so, especially when you consider the context of the Bible and when you consider that the apostles went to death for this, when
well,
you consider.
To be clear, that's a common misconception. We don't really have any historical evidence that any
Right,
more than one, maybe two,
there's
actually went to their death for this.
Right. There's a few. I think it is widely embellished that they all went to their death. I think
In fact, we don't actually have any evidence that any of them went to their death because they refused to recant about the resurrection. We don't have any evidence of that.
I don't believe it's the strongest though. I think that's more of a recent thing that's come out. But I think it's just important to look at this, that this is your interpretation of it, and you're just denying the historical evidence itself.
Well, look, so the question was about credence, right? Like, what are the options here? And what probability do I assign them of being correct? And so I know for a fact that historical people often have their lives exaggerated after their death, especially if they were important people, if they were, impactful, if they had followers and so on. We know that this is a real thing that happens, right?
Exaggerated isn't the same as being God. There's a difference,
sure
right?
it is.
Because,
sure it is.
Because if you're talking about exaggerated,
that this happened historically,
and then you're talking
right?
about God. That is beyond.
You know that this happened historically, right? Like there are other examples of this.
Of what?
Of like people thinking that some guy rose from the dead and was going to lead them to victory or whatever, or lead them to enlightenment, or lead them to heaven. Like there are other examples of this.
And how far did it go?
There was literally a war as a result of it.
Right. Where is it today?
Oh well, I mean they lost. So
okay, so it didn't go far. I mean,
that's irrelevant. The success is not relevant to whether or not people believed it was true.
I disagree. I completely disagree.
So when Islam is more popular than Christianity, which it will be in 30 to 50 years, you'll be like, oh, Islam is more correct than Christianity?
No, I wouldn't. I just think objectively.
So then the popularity or the success has nothing to do with its truth.
I wouldn't say it has. No, I wouldn't say it has nothing to do. I believe it has something to do with it. I wouldn't say that Islam in particular is. I think it's a little bit more specific when we get into Islam, but that's a different topic in my opinion. Because I think almost all Christian countries are becoming way more secular, versus Islamic countries will obviously they're under Sharia law. It's a little bit different.
Well, that's a whole separate can of worms. My point is that like the success is not really relevant. Like, suppose for a moment, I mean, like, look, okay, we agree that the Romans were at one point the Romans were persecuting Christians, right?
Yes.
What if they had been successful and they just killed off all the Christians? Then Christianity would have failed.
Yeah, what if? But it didn't.
But my point is that like that wouldn't like in your view that wouldn't have made Jesus any less God, right?
No, it wouldn't have made Jesus any less God. I don't think it's as strong of a point, but for you to discount it at all is, I think even yourself, I think you're being dishonest with yourself.
Well, I mean, I didn't know that I was talking to a mind reader.
No.
If you can read my mind, can you figure out what would convince me that a God exists?
I'm just trying to pick it apart a little bit, because I just think for you it would make sense that, okay, if something great is happening here, like you wanted to use the example of Islam. Mm-hmm. I mean, Islam expanded its borders so far and they conquered so much. I'm not going to say that there's nothing to Islam. There's obviously something to Islam. I just don't think God is a part of it. For you to say that there's nothing there, well, I just don't agree.
No, my point is that the reason I said that the success is unrelated to its truth is because I brought up an example of it was a bunch of Roman rebels basically that thought that, I want to say it was Nero. I could find this out for if you want. I want to say it was Nero had resurrected. No, it wasn't Nero. Sorry, it was a different Roman. It was a different Roman dude. Let me find it out. There's even a Wikipedia article on it.
Interesting.
Yeah, let me see if Nero, it was Nero. Nero Redivivus. So there was a belief in this is actually like right around Jesus's time, during the last part of the 1st century, that the Roman Emperor Nero would return after his death in 68 AD. This was a common belief, and it led to a what's it called? A rebellion that got crushed. But a bunch of people died because they thought that this was true. Like a bunch of people.
Right, and it didn't persist, right?
Yeah, because they all got killed.
Okay.
In fact, this happened 3 times.
It is hard to kill off a religion versus something like this, in my opinion. I think that's. I don't think you have a bad point. I just think that success does lead to, because I think you would agree, if a lot of people agree with something, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's something here.
I mean, like,
No,
look, the fact that a lot of people believe something makes it at least worth talking about, because if they're wrong, then there's a lot of people who are wrong, and we should try to convince them otherwise. And if they're right, well, then we can talk about, we can try to figure out if they're right too. But it just doesn't really move the needle for me. Like, a lot of people have believed a lot of wrong things in the past.
That's completely fine. I do want to like touch down on this though, because it seems like the historical evidence doesn't. So it's not good for you because not of the evidence itself, but because it's supernatural.
No, look, so there's like writings that we have, right? That's like what the historical evidence is. The writings are like,
right.
We have these texts.
You do have.
Well, hold on. The Shroud of Turin was a forgery, and we know it's a forgery. We know like when it was made.
Not true.
It absolutely is.
What,
it was declared a forgery by like one of the popes in like the 1300s or like the late.
Yeah. Well,
1200s?
you believe it goes back. You believe it goes back to 13 or 1200?
Yeah, I don't remember what the year is.
They did another form of dating on that, and I believe it went back to 2000.
So fortunately, or unfortunately for you, I suppose, the people who did that dating are the same people who did a similar study like 10 years ago that they had to retract because they were doing bad science.
Right, and
secondly, the style of dating that they used has never been used or confirmed in any other case. They like invented a new thing just so then they could try to date. No, it's not more accurate. It's much less accurate.
Well, interesting, because the carbon dating that they used was supposed to be on a piece of cloth that was actually a reconstruction.
So why was it reconstructed in the 1300s?
Well, it wasn't reconstructed in 1300s.
Then why did the carbon dating date to that year?
They had to beautify it up. It was a piece of cloth that they.
Why was that piece of cloth added in 1354?
It's a very complicated topic. I think for you to be like, oh, it's a known forgery, and then say
like everybody except evangelicals accept it as a forgery, basically.
What are you
like?
Talking
Not
about?
not even the Pope will say, "Oh yeah, it's real."
Okay.
Anyway, so look, we were talking about the historical evidence. So we have like a whole bunch of writings. The evidence is the writings. Now we have to examine those writings. We don't just believe any writing. Please, I'm in the middle of a sentence. We don't just believe any piece of writing from the ancient world. We examine what the writing says, and then we use that to come to likely conclusions about what actually happened. Because if we just believed what every writing said, then like we would be justified in believing that like the Greek gods existed, or that they do exist, because people were writing about like the will of Zeus and like Athena's wisdom like all the time. But like
right, but I think there's something
look at
too
the
that they
writings.
didn't just believe it just because it's a writing. Now that's not necessarily what it was.
We're talking about whether or not you and I believe it.
We are talking about that.
Right, and so we have access to these texts, and we have to figure out what is the most likely outcome given these texts, or what is the most likely thing that happened given these texts.
Your problem with the text is that it's supernatural.
Well, so yeah, and that should be everybody's problem, because supernatural things, by definition, are things that we should not expect to happen basically ever.
Right, but they.
So
but
that means that our initial priors should be in the floor. They should be as close to zero as you can imagine, because at least most people have like no experience with the supernatural. We have no reason to think that like people can rise from the dead. So your priors should be in the floor. And if your priors are not in the floor, then you need to readjust your priors, because on what grounds do you have for thinking it's possible that a man can rise from the dead, except that you already believe in Christianity?
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't a Christian before this.
Okay, so look, before this, did you believe, what did you think the odds were that someone could rise from the dead?
Honestly, I was agnostic. I never really looked into the claims of Christianity all that much.
So what did you think the odds were that somebody could rise from the dead?
Before, not much.
Okay, so like, are we talking like 40%? Are we talking 1%? Are we talking like 1 in a million chance?
I can't give that to you. It's a very low number though.
Okay, so then there must have been some extraordinary evidence that would bring that up, because that would raise that up to, you know, the confidence that you have now, because, and the reason I say this is the probability of like a person faking their death, or a person having an imposter, or of a story getting overblown and exaggerated, the probability of those things happening, like we know that those things happen all the time. So the probability of those things happen should start out way higher.
When we're talking about there should be a crazy amount of evidence, we can't expect that of this particular event.
I'm sorry, then you just shouldn't believe it, right?
That's not true. That's just not true. You can't expect this of this particular event because this particular event took place 2,000 years ago. For you to require such evidence is you being ultra skeptical of it.
No. It's
we
being
understand
rational
that we
about
can't
it, right?
obtain that evidence of this event, but the evidence that we do have of this event shows that it happened. So this is you being ultra skeptical.
Look, so we have evidence that people said that it happened. Now we need to figure out, given that people said that this happened, you know, 30 to 60 years afterwards.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand your threshold for this, because it's like,
the question is, it's a comparison of theories, right? It's a comparison of options. It's a comparison. That's what we're doing. Right. We're not just looking at just one possible option. There's a bunch of possible options. One possible option is that this was completely manufactured, completely made up. Another possible option is that there was an imposter that tricked all of the disciples into thinking that he was actually the risen Jesus. Another possible option is that this was a vast conspiracy orchestrated by the Romans to quell the Jews. Another possible option is that there was a hallucination. And people hallucinated the post-resurrection.
I highly doubt
that was another possible option. And another possible option is that Jesus actually rose from the dead. So we have to compare these. And so if they all equally well explain the data, then we just need to examine their priors. And whichever one has the highest priors is the one that we should most likely trust.
What evidence do you have to examine this?
All we have are the writings.
So they go off the writings.
Right. Well, so all we have is that the people believed, or all we have is that people wrote this. Now, we can probably infer that at least some of these people probably believed this. Some of the authors probably believed it. That's reasonable. Most people don't lie straight out. It's not often. It doesn't happen often. At least not like many people lying about the same thing in the same way. So we can probably believe that these people who were writing this 30 to 60 years after Jesus was executed, we can probably infer that they believed it. Now the question is, why did they believe it? What was the cause of that belief? Did it actually happen, or were they misled, or was there a mistaken identity? Those are the questions that we have to examine.
I just don't think you have a basis for it. I think.
Can you engage with what I said?
Well, what exactly? So you're saying that all we have to go off is basically the writings.
Yep.
And they could have totally been misled.
Well, that's a possibility.
And we have to examine those things, right?
It's a possibility that they could have been misled, right? So, it's a possibility that they could have been mistaken.
Okay, I'm not saying it's not a possibility.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's not a possibility.
So we need to examine the possibilities.
I think we both agree that there's a possibility that you're right, and there's a possibility that I'm right, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so with this, we have to look at evidence, what we have. Unfortunately, historical evidence, we can't really break this down scientifically because it's historical evidence. It's not the same process. So what we have is, like, why do you believe that Julius Caesar existed?
We have archaeological evidence that he existed. Like, we have coins with his face on it, for example, that were minted in the time where he was supposed to have existed. We have records of people who were alive at the time saying, oh yeah, I was hanging out with Julius Caesar.
That prove the historicity of the Bible?
Sorry?
There's been no archaeological evidence.
We have no archaeological evidence that Jesus existed.
Of the Bible?
We have no archaeological evidence that Jesus existed.
Okay, well,
I mean, we have like historical records that Jesus existed, but we don't have archaeological evidence.
Okay, you know what? I'll give this one to you. So when we talk about most historical evidence is written history. Do we agree? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Did I turn you down?
I'm sorry, I accidentally tapped my mic. To an extent, my general view is that, like, history, like written history, is fine for like mundane things, But like, if you want to make the claim that there was like a battle of Troy between like a huge invasion force by the Greeks like 3,000 years ago to attack like an enormous city, if you want to convince me of that, it's not going to be enough to just have like a written account that this happened with like Athena intervening. You're going to have to go and find like actual evidence that Troy even existed. And that's actually what happened in the 1850s. There was a German guy who went and he found Troy. He found like the archaeological evidence that Troy existed, which gave us reason to think that there was actually a Troy. So for large claims, for large claims, it's just, I think archaeological evidence is probably more important. Is maybe not more important, but archaeological evidence is important.
And I think we both agree that like finding archaeological evidence in this particular instance is a little. It's going to be way more hard because Troy was a great city battle. To say that there's nothing left over is kind of crazy. Versus this, which people thought was just an everyday run-of-the-mill execution of a man.
So let me give you. So yeah, we probably wouldn't expect archaeological evidence of Jesus' execution. However, what we would expect, for example, is archaeological. Hold on. What we would expect, for example, is perhaps archaeological evidence of 2 million Jewish people, or I guess they weren't Jewish yet. Well, no, I guess they were. Jewish people wandering around in the desert for 40 years. We would definitely expect to see archaeological evidence of that, but we don't.
And that has to do with the Old Testament. This is nothing that I brought up.
Right. But what I'm saying is that like there are definitely claims made in the Bible that like we would expect archaeological evidence for that we don't see. But you're right. For like Jesus's execution, we probably wouldn't expect to find the cross, right? We wouldn't expect to like find drops of blood or something like that. Right. But what we would expect if this happened, if the resurrection happened. Oh, by the way, the other thing is that like we would expect to see writings about this, not just from people who agreed with him, but people like, just from random Romans who happen to be around, or from, visitors from far off lands who happen to be around. We would have expected some of this. Like there's a verse in, what is it? It's somewhere in the Bible that talks about after Jesus rose from the dead, the tombs of the ancestors opened up in Jerusalem. And I can go find the verse for you if you want.
I know what you're talking about. Matthew, right?
Yeah. I think it's Matthew.
Yeah, the last chapter of Matthew.
Yeah, so the tombs broke open, and the bodies, and the tombs broke open, and the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. So, if this happened, why don't we have any other accounts of, a whole bunch of zombies wandering around Jerusalem? Like, people would have noticed that. Why is Matthew the only one who wrote about this?
Right, and I think that this is actually a really good argument in the other way. So I do think that is a pretty wild claim that doesn't have a lot of backing, but just this. But at the same time, although it is extraordinary, it is also eyewitness testimony that has been written down.
But
and this is
one guy.
This is the evidence that we have to go on.
But look, my point is if you brought in one guy, do you remember the shooting of the insurance CEO?
Yeah.
Okay. So imagine that you were the defense attorney for the guy, for Luigi, right? And you brought up some random guy off the street, and he says you bring him up to testify, and you ask him, so were you there at the time of the shooting? And the guy says, I was there when it was supposed to happen. I was there at the time of the shooting. And then you, as the defense, you say, oh, well, who was the person who shot him? And then you say, oh, there was actually no shooter. A gun fell from the sky, and it accidentally triggered and shot him. That's testimony from a guy. Even if he believes it, it's testimony from a guy. It doesn't mean that we should believe that. Okay, that's crazy.
I understand, but in this particular instance, when we're talking about this ancient civilization, this is a group of ancient people that didn't have any problem with the supernatural. They believed that the supernatural events were happening all around.
So then why didn't they record it when it did happen?
Now, Well, I mean, you're talking about like average people. I mean, we also have to talk about how common the writing was. I don't know how common it was.
They were about 3%. They had a literacy rate of about 3%, is what I've heard.
Okay.
So if you have hundreds of dead people wandering around Jerusalem, the odds that at least more than one person would have noticed this and been able to write it down, they should have done it. Also, we should have records of this from when it happened, not from Matthew, which is like 60 years after it happened.
Diminishes it at all, the time frame. I don't think it does at all. I mean, if you believe that it's happening, if we believe supernatural events are a common occurrence, and nobody's in a rush to write it down anyways because we all believe it.
Okay.
I think that's pretty common with the culture.
People wandering around this, like dead people wandering around the city, is not a common occurrence.
Okay, but you're not looking at it in the time frame. You have to look at
wouldn't
how
have thought
the
it was a common
ancient
occurrence either.
civilization-
They wouldn't
You
have thought it
have
was
to look
common
at-
either.
Jeez, this is insane. You have to look at it how the ancient civilization viewed it. This was not uncommon for them. They believe that these things were common. So this is not
Unfortunately, you've just destroyed your own argument, and I don't say that lightly. If it was so normal for them, for just a bunch of random people to get up and walk around, so you said it was common for them for these kinds of things to happen, and so that only one person wrote it. Isn't that what you just said?
It's not. It's common to believe it.
Oh, right. It was common that they believed. It was common for them to believe that supernatural things could happen. So of course they weren't going to write it down. It was like, if it actually happened, whatever. Like it's not a big deal. Then why is it then that we have more accounts of Jesus resurrecting than we do of hundreds of people resurrecting? If people resurrecting is just a normal thing that people believed. Why would anybody write down Jesus is coming back? Apparently, it would have been no big deal.
To do specifically with the type of people that it is, the Messianic movement itself.
Wouldn't they have all written down the many zombies wandering around Jerusalem?
No, because every time it happened, they just died off.
The zombies?
No, the Messianic movement.
No, I'm talking about the zombies. Like, why weren't the zombies written about by more people?
Okay, now we're on the zombies. Okay, I think we're going around in like some weird ways. Look, I think that
I think we've been talking about the zombies for a while, haven't we?
Well, I think you've been talking about the zombies for a while. So I think that you are requiring a specific amount of historical evidence that obviously cannot be obtained. But I think we can move on from. Do you want to go on to someone else? Because I was going to bring up another topic.
I should probably end the live stream because it's past noon.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
This is as good a place to stop as any.
Yeah. Hey, good talk. Good talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if that one needs to go on YouTube. I'll review it, see if it needs to go on YouTube. It was an interesting conversation. Had them before. All right, y'all. Let's read some. Before I read the super chats, let me just make sure that I didn't miss any from Venmo or something. We have $3 from Cash App from Katiana for guest has concepts of balls. Guest did have concept of balls. And before I read the super chats, I'm going to shill just a little bit. If you guys want to join the Discord server so you can get announcements about my videos, about my live streams, you can ask me questions, you can talk with like-minded people, then all of the verts and the horrors and the TikTokers, you guys can all talk together. There is a live channel where you can talk about the live stream in the Discord server, so you should join there. Go to discord.gg/drblitz, Dr. Blitz. Do it. I'm telling you to. Second thing, if you guys want to support me and you want access to stickers on, say, YouTube or TikTok, and you want access to my debate notes, which I use in these kinds of debates, they're like my personal notes that I've written down over the last few years. They have sources, arguments, counter-arguments, facts, things like that. Consider becoming a member on YouTube or Patreon. It's like $4 or $5 a month, depends on where you end up subscribing, and it helps me out a lot. It's a good way for me to be able to fund myself doing this rather than having to spend 9 hours a day doing something else. So it really does help. Now, with that said, let's make sure that we can get through some super chats. So from Mindas with the €5, told girlfriend most stars are buy systems. She asks, so what happens when one star dies? Thought this is a perfect opportunity to send Dr. Blitz some money. Oh, it's a good question. Sometimes it depends on how it dies. If the star dies in the same way our sun will die, it'll just become a white dwarf, and the white dwarf will just orbit the other star as it's still alive. However, if it explodes, then the other star probably, well, the other star might survive, or it might not. If the other star doesn't survive, then it doesn't survive. If it does survive, then you'll just have a black hole orbiting a star, or vice versa. Or a neutron star, rather. From Lefloic Games, the 5 Canuck Bucks had big storms in northern Quebec. Listening to these conversations while pushing the snowblower is a great way to start 2026. Cheers. I appreciate you. I hope that you don't have so many more big storms to keep yourself safe, but I appreciate that. From Gretchen with the $6.66 Hail Lamp. I love you, Lamp. I will spread the Illuminati message far and wide. Please don't send me to infinite balls for eternity. Indeed, hashtag I love Lamp, hashtag Illuminati, hashtag, what else do we have? Hashtag illuminated by the lava lamp. From Poopman Jones with the $2. Does Gospel of Infinite Balls threaten lampism? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. From Fifth Aviank with the $5. In my denomination, we just say all hail Lamp. Just because you made it up doesn't mean you make a true believer. But thank you for going live for our sins. Absolutely. Also, you're a heretic. From Blue with the 5 Canuck Bucks, I'm a pastor's kid and my pastor father used telepathy to pretend to be Jesus. All the Bible heroes are schizo. It lies about the voice of God. So to be clear, let's not use the word schizo to refer to hearing voices. It's kind of derogatory. There's a word for it, schizophrenic. So, you know, let's just not do that. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, maybe people were hearing voices. Maybe that's why they did make that claim. The gospel writers, for example. And from Scottish, again with the £5, speciation isn't macroevolution. It's an assumption of species. Oh, I already read that. From A for Brennan with the $5, Yeshua was a fairly common name in the 1st century CE, so it's not remarkable that one was crucified by the Romans 2,000 years ago. That's exactly my point. Yeah, it's just not that remarkable. It doesn't require a whole lot of evidence to believe. I understand that it's slang. There's other words that you could use. It's just like look, it's just a thing. Like, you know, try to be decent with the words that you choose, right? From Scottish. Oh no, I already read that one. From I Am the Big Cheese with the $5. Intelligent design argument insists God must have a design. Oh, I already read that. I already read that. From Cognitive Dissonance with the $10. Denying macroevolution is like denying aging and claiming that every adult you don't know must have been spontaneously poofed into existence as an adult because you didn't actually see them grow up. That's exactly it. It's like saying, oh, well, I get 1 day older every day. What do you mean you went from a child to an adult? Don't be absurd, right? That is what denying macroevolution is. From Rodblo Alres with the 50 Mexican pesos, which I think is like $12 or something. Is the mighty lamp a jealous deity, or will it illuminate our ways even if we lava nada? Of course the lamp is not a jealous deity. Lamps can't be jealous. Duh. From Vicinal Elk with the $2, theology is the world's biggest game of telephone. I agree. By the way, there is a lamp emoji that you can get access to as well. And from Vicinal Elk again with the $5, I also think religion is a series of scary fictitious stories to invoke morality to stop people from doing heinous things. Can't convince me otherwise. I think that some people actually believe it. I don't think it's always just about that. From I Am the Big Cheese with the $5 again. You guys are so generous today. I appreciate you guys. Saying carbon daters used wrong piece of shroud seems to assert scientists were dishonest or didn't know better. That is an unfounded assertion. It's true. From Mindforged Manacle, the middle of your sentences keep interrupting his. Yeah, it's really my fault. From Jeff with the $5, please let the host finish their point. Well, thank you. From Fifth Aviank with the $2, from 0.1 to 100% belief in magic with zero evidence. That's roughly, well, look, I mean, there is evidence. Like, the Gospels do count as evidence. The question is what do they count of evidence for? From I Am the Big Cheese again with the $5, I think the fact that risen Jesus went away again with promise of a second coming is a very convenient excuse of where this risen Messiah is right now. I agree. That is an issue, right? Like, why didn't you just stick around? From Scottish again with the £5. Yo, what was that earlier cognitive dissonance? What cognitive dissonance? You might just have to come up one day. And from Night Animal with the $5. Love you, bro. Thanks for streaming. Of course. Thank you for being here. I think we just have a few more. Mindforged Manacle with the $2. Oh yeah, 60 years ago, all the dead rose up, by the way. That's basically what happened, and nobody else wrote about it for that entire 60 years. From I'm the Big Cheese with the $10. Argument that it was common for supernatural events to happen is why Jewish zombies were not written down as crazy. There are whole parts of writings dedicated to viral stories of mundane shit. Yeah. Look, the reason why we have, according to you anyway, why we have records of Jesus rising from the dead is because it was not mundane, because it was so unusual. From No Origin, with the $2 New Zealand dollars, no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. I mean, I think that's strictly false, by the way. I think that there are examples of these people. From Jeff with the $5, argument for God, we are surrounded by colors we can't see in the light spectrum. Just saying. Huh. You got me there. I'm a believer now. And that's all we got today. So everybody, remember, make sure to join the Discord server. It's run by a very lovely person who goes by the name of Lilith. Yeah. Make sure to join. Oh, we have one more from Just Rick. Looking forward to the epic battle between Lamp and Spanky. Lamp doesn't fight. Lamps can't fight. Anyway, y'all, thank you guys so much for being here.